The House Committee on Elections will now come to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Chair Laubenberg.
Here.
Vice Chair Goldman.
Here.
Representative Reynolds.
Here.
Representative Pat Fallon. Representative Israel. Representative Dave Phelan.
Here.
Representative Schofield.
Here.
Okay, looks like we've got a quorum present, and looks like we have a lot of witnesses today. So, I want everyone to have a chance to speak, but we don't want to be here past midnight for your sake as well. Because a lot of you are trying to, come in town, testify, and then leave. So out of courtesy to everyone else, we're just asking that you'll be very direct, very succinct, and if someone has made your point, certainly point out that they made your point and concur. And we're not necessarily doing the bills in order. We tend to do it who is here, and we recognize our chairman. So we're going to open up. The chair lays out House Bill. Murphy's bill?
1096.
Okay, House Bill 1096 for consideration, and recognizes Representative Murphy to explain his bill.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, committee members. I'm pleased to present to you House Bill 1096. Madam Chair, I have a committee substitute for this bill.
Okay. Hold on a second.
Sure. We've been working for quite a time with our stakeholders trying to make sure we got all this laid out correctly.
Okay, so the chair lays out House Bill 1096 for consideration and recognizes Representative Goldman. Representative Goldman offers committee substitute to House Bill 1096 and calls on Representative Murphy to explain the measure. Pardon me.
Oh, well done, Madam Chair. Okay, so talking about the substitute, about this bill. So this substitute includes some new language, which is exemptions for judges, law enforcement officers, and victims of family abuse who are currently protected from the law from having their address listed. This bill is about residency. The substitute also has a couple changes that I want to bring to your attention. It prevents the usage of a commercial driver's license for residency, since current law mandates that a CDL does not display your residence address. It also clarifies the process to challenge residency. And finally, the substitute sends the voter affidavit. This is somebody who lacks all the forms of ID. They send the affidavit now to the county registrar instead of the Secretary of State, and this is a change that was added by the Secretary of State's election division, or requested, I should say. The intent of this bill, 1096, is simply to ensure that voters will reside and vote in the same precinct. Today, and members, you've probably encountered this, some voters are registered at vacant lots, mailbox stores, motels, and commercial locations. This situation is a problem for voters, candidates, and the public at large. This bill will allow a voter registrar to match a person's residence address with 6 options with an opt-out and several exemptions. So here are the items that they can use to match in order. Texas driver's license, the personal identification card, the one issued by the DPS, the concealed handgun license, where a person receives mail, excluding P.O. boxes if they don't correspond to a residence. There are P.O. boxes that correspond to residents in some rural areas, as you may know. A homestead address, or the registration address of a vehicle a person owns. If a voter is unable to provide any of these forms, they can simply file an affidavit with the county registrar. We've had conversations with people representing the homeless, for instance, who fall into this deal. In addition to the exemption for those addresses that are protected, this bill makes an exception for full-time students and active military members to ensure their right to vote is preserved. This law will provide a direct relationship between a residence on a voter registration and documentation to verify residence, and this is the only time you can use this verification, if a challenge occurs in an election requiring verification of a voter's residence, or if there's a conflict or discrepancy found. A voter will not be required to have any form of documentation I just described in order to register to vote. This bill provides for the Secretary of State's office to adopt rules as necessary to implement this section. And Madam Chair, I have a few witnesses to speak on this issue and be happy to return to close.
Okay, and you have certain witnesses you'd like to go first?
Yes, ma'am.
in
Yes,
that
I think
order?
it'd be easier, and there may be others who signed up as well.
Okay.
But if the committee has any
fine.
questions, I'd be happy to answer those if y'all
Yeah.
have any.
Do y'all have any questions for Representative Murphy?
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, so now the chair calls Ed Johnson to testify. I'm sorry, let's see.
Yes, right. Or am I in the wrong order?
Are you Ed Johnson?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't recognize, I was thinking somebody else was Ed.
Okay.
Okay, so have you registered?
Yes, I have. Am I on the list?
I'm looking for Mr. Johnson.
Did you register with the outside form
I did. I went on my little iPad and filled it all out.
You filled it all out? Okay, so,
I can re-register again if you
yeah,
want.
this is the first full hearing, so work with us, folks.
We might want to re-register.
Do you want me to do my testimony? and then
Okay,
register?
we'll go ahead and let you do the testimony, but make sure you can.
Okay. Yeah, I'll
You
go back
asked to
and
register
re-register.
first?
All right.
All right, let's call the next witness, and then, okay. In that case, then the chair calls Cheryl Johnson. Have you registered with the clerk?
Yes, I have.
Do we have her on the list?
Yes,
Okay, so for the record, please state your name, who you represent, which bill you wish to testify for or against your position.
Thank you. My name is Cheryl E. Johnson. I am the Galveston County Tax Assessor Collector and Voter Registrar, as well as a voter of the state of Texas. And I'm qualified to speak on the importance of passage of 1096 due to my capacity as a registered voter and the voter registrar.
Okay, and you said you were for the bill?
I am for the bill.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Although the word residence occurs in Texas statute 563 times, is extremely vague in the Texas Election Code, resulting in 79 years of lawsuits in order to define it. The Texas Education Code defines resident as a person's home or other dwelling place, and the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board has not only written a great deal of administrative code to define it, they created a residence determination official for every Texas higher education institution. But Secretary of State does not have anything that elaborates like that does. And the county appraisal districts require a Texas ID or driver's license to establish a homestead exemption with the same address as the property. And I gave you application president homestead exemption so you could see this requirement. And at the bottom of the first page, you'll see it. I put that at each desk. And then on page 3, the required documents are a copy of a driver's license or Texas ID. Everyone is confident of the DPS standard, which is specified in administrative code, and it even requires a residency affidavit, which I have also presented here. And if a person lacks any 2 items listed on the back, and in the interest of time, I'm not going to read all these, but I want you to understand, with passage of Representative Murphy's bill, including a Texas driver's license or Texas ID, all of these other items are included. So a current deed, mortgage statement, a residential lease agreement, a valid unexpired voter registration card, a motor vehicle registration or title, boat registration, concealed handgun license, a water bill, a cable bill, a phone bill. Everybody has a cell phone bill. That's included in this list. Electric service card, a homeowner's or renter's insurance policy, any high school diploma or transcript, or college, a W-2, a 1099, anything from a bank showing that you have a loan. All the things listed here, by virtue of him including just those 2 items, includes all of these items too that would enable somebody to register to vote. And I think it's really important you understand it's not the 6 things that are listed in his bill. It's like 18 things that are also listed here, because this will get you a Texas driver's license. Everyone is I'm sorry, let me go on. You cannot get in Texas a driver's license, attend college, or have a homestead exemption without proving where you live. So I believe that voting is just, if not more important than those things, and I hope that the time has finally come for the legislature to truly identify and settle this question and get it out of the courtrooms. House Bill 1096 would really clarify a lot for us in the voter registration offices. It'll also stop us from having to be put in the middle of political battles where people are questioning whether we're smart enough to register voters with the address they put on their application. I thank you.
Okay, members, any questions? Okay, thank you. All right, Chair recognizes Jacqueline Callan. If I said that wrong, please correct me. It's kind of like Lovenberg. And I do want to make a statement that if you notice that they are still referring reading and referring bills on the House floor, that we do have permission to conduct the committee. That was given earlier today at 2:45, I believe. So we are covered. That's why we can start a committee meeting now. Okay, so with that, for the record, please again state your name, who you represent, whether you're for or against the bill,
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
and the bill you're testifying on.
Yes, please. I'm Jackie Callanan, the Bexar County Elections Administrator, and also the Legislative Chair for the Texas Association of Elections Administrators, which are 103 counties strong. We are in support of this bill with the understanding with the substitute, and also we would like to work to have a little bit of more of the language defined. But we commend Representative Murphy on trying to help us with residency, because it is one of the biggest things that we deal with. And this has so many fine points where we can nail it down. It's very, very difficult for us with post office boxes, commercial addresses, that this will help us tremendously. And I don't want to belabor the point because Ms. Cheryl did a great job on the other part.
Great, thank you. Any other questions, members? Okay, thank you very much. All right, Chair recognizes Bill Fairbrother.
Good afternoon. My name is Bill Fairbrother. I'm the Williamson County Republican Party Chairman, and I'm also Legislative Director for the Texas Republican County Chairmen's Association. And I'll be much briefer on the additional bills, but I want to take a brief moment to introduce Carl Tepper. He's the Chairman of the Texas Republican County Chairmen's Associations. He's here with us today.
Okay, great. And you need to say which bill you're testifying on.
This is Bill 1096,
And your position.
I support the bill.
Okay.
When I first became chair about 17 years ago, they said residency was a state of mind, and that can create several problems. The problems on registering have already gone over. I just want to relay a couple of quick stories I've encountered as chairman and engaged in politics. We once had a bar owner dissatisfied with the Round Rock City Council and their discussion on a smoking ban. He lived down near Lake Travis. He decided to register at his bar as his residence so he could run for Round Rock City Council and right the wrong they felt the city council was doing. The one time I was sued as party chair was over a candidate dissatisfied over one of his opponent's supposed residence. This person had claimed the bedroom in her brother's house as her residence, even though she owned a property about 2 blocks outside of the district as it ended up being drawn. And those kind of cases can be avoided if we get the residency right at the stage of registration. Those problems can be fixed. And one key point is to remember is you can still put on, when you register to vote, a mailing address. So putting your real residence address still allows you to receive mail at a P.O. box or the place of your choice. Thank you all.
Members, any questions? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so the chair calls Alan Vera to testify. And again,
Is there a
Mr.
time
Vera?
limit?
Not yet.
Okay. Gotcha. Don't let Schofield talk. My name's Alan Vera. I'm a native Hispanic Texan, a Vietnam vet, and today I'm chairman of the Ballot Security Committee for Harris County Republican Party. I'm here to testify in favor of HB 1096. I've been deeply involved in election integrity efforts all across the country for 5 years. And as a native and lifelong Texan, it really bothers me that the election code of the tiny podunk state of Maine has more clear language defining residency than does the election code of my home state, the great state of Texas. This section of our election code is now so ambiguous and so open to subjective interpretation, all it's created is lawsuits and constant intervention by the Secretary of State and the Texas Attorney General. First point clearly, leaving the language alone as it is not an option. It doesn't work. It really is broken. The case of Mills versus Bartlett made Texas a laughingstock nationally because of the ambiguity of this section of our election code and the way people tore it apart. Another charming piece of litigation related to this is an out-of-court consent decree that forbids the voter registrar of the largest county in Texas from initiating a challenge to any voter registration on the basis of residence, no matter how obvious the apparent violation or discrepancy. Are you kidding me, Alan? No, I'm not. The voter registrar for the largest county in Texas is forbidden from challenging voter registrations. The language in HB 1096 provides specific objective criteria in a ranked order of priority with which to better determine whether a prospective voter actually lives at the address listed on the voter registration application. It fixes the problems with the current language. And I will tell you, quite frankly, from years of reviewing voter registrations and challenging some, the problem is not with the homeless. The problem is with the homeful. It's people who have multiple residences and intermingle them strategically to their political advantage. Compared to all the other states in the Union, Texas is the A team in so many factors: economic development and job creation. With regard to a clear definition of the correct residential address for voter registration, we're not the A team. We are F troop. And I'm tired of being F troop. I ask you to join me in working to change the language of the proposal of the code. Please move HB 1096 forward. I'm ready to answer any questions you have.
Okay, members, any questions? Representative Schofield.
Hey, Alan, I actually don't have any questions. I was thinking of a way to give you a hard time when you're up
I knew
there.
you were.
You always out-debate me, so I'm not
I
going to
knew you
do
were.
it. But thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just one
Vice Chair Goldman.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Vera, thanks for coming today. Just a question. So you're in charge of the Harris County Republican Party ballot security?
That's correct.
Can you kind of tell us what that means?
That means I get to have a job that's like being the only air traffic controller in the tower at LaGuardia at 5 p.m. on a Friday. The Ballot Security Committee of the Harris County Republican Party tries to ensure the integrity of the election process all the way from voter registration through the actual counting of the ballots. The ballot board that works with the county clerk to actually count and certify the elections also comes under my jurisdiction. So every aspect of the election is under our, I guess, surveillance, if you will, and we do everything we can to intervene when necessary to make the right corrections. The biggest challenge of what we do is we recruit, train, and appoint people to work the elections. And in Harris County, with over 900 precincts, every November, that's a heck of a job.
So if someone is registered to vote and you know they don't live at a particular address, what's the process you take in order to enforce that?
Well, it depends on the person. Okay, we can't enforce. In Texas, a private voter, a registered voter, can challenge another voter. Okay, and in Harris County, the voter registrar can't challenge anybody. The proper thing to do is to do investigation. There's enough good evidence available publicly, and you'll hear about it from some other witnesses later, to look at, gee, he's registered to vote at this address. Oh my goodness, there are 7 other adults registered to vote at that address. Oh gosh, they all have homestead exemptions at different places from this one. All right? Based on that, an element that Representative Murphy's trying to address, we go ahead and challenge if we think there's reason to believe this person is not telling the truth about where he actually lives. It's further enhanced, sir, by the fact that his wife lives at and is registered at the homestead exemption address and not the address where this person claims to live. No lie. It's not unusual to find 7 adults registered at an address which is truly a vacant lot, while they have homestead exemptions elsewhere, because the current election code says where you intend to live after some absence. We've got to fix it.
And where do you take that challenge? You take it to the Harris County Elections Administrator, or you take it to the
We don't have
Secretary
an
of State?
administrator, we have a county registrar, voter registrar.
Voter, you take it to them, or does it come to the Secretary of State?
Right now it comes to the voter registrar, and it has to be a signed affidavit notarized.
Okay.
It's a serious issue. It's a very serious issue.
That's what. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, just to
Representative Fallon.
thank you for coming and testifying. Just a quick question. If you could enlighten us on just an anecdote or two or a story about the problems you have with people with multiple addresses and how they maybe manipulated the current system.
Yeah. You'll hear in a minute, and again, this is nonpartisan, least part, you'll hear in a minute about a Republican candidate for a local office who is exactly what I just described. He had a registration to vote at an address inside the city limits of Houston with 6 other adults, and it was an 1,100 square foot house with 1 bathroom. Okay? He had a homestead exemption at a house in Spring, Texas, much farther to the north, where his car was registered, where his handgun was registered, where his wife lived and voted from. Okay? That person ran for office claiming he lived inside the city limits of Houston, being eligible for that, to run for that office. That's a problem. That's a problem. And it happens in big cities more often than not. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Representative Schofield.
One serious question. You mentioned people with multiple residences. I know there are folks that live in our county who will have like a weekend home down in Galveston, and they decide on some local issue they want to vote down there to preserve their property or whatever, even though they live and sometimes vote in Harris County. Is your understanding this bill is designed to take care of issues like that?
This bill is designed to establish a clear definition of residence for purposes of voter registration, and it will take care of that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you all so much for your
Thank
courtesy
you.
and time. Appreciate it.
All right. Chair calls up Colleen Vera. I get that right. And again, please state your name, who you represent, the bill you're testifying on, and your position.
Okay, thank you. My name is Colleen Bear, and I'm here today representing myself in favor of House Bill 1096, and I think he just ruined my story.
And you are in your position on the bill.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm in favor of House
you
Bill
may have said it, I didn't hear it.
1096.
Okay, go ahead.
I researched voter registrations in Texas as a member of a voter integrity group, and I've used that experience since to research political candidates. I found the majority of irregularities are from voters with multiple addresses or who have multiple addresses on their IDs, like their driver's license and things like that. I'd like to share with you one example of a voter registration irregularity that I discovered in 2012 involving a primary candidate where I live in Harris County. His application to be on the Republican Party primary ballot, his campaign financial statements, his donations to a Republican Women's Club, his homestead tax exemption, and his wife's voter registration were all addresses in the 5,000 square foot house in Spring. However, his voter registration was in an 1,100 square foot house inside the city limits of Houston, along with 5 other adult voters. Interestingly, 2 years later, in 2014, the address given for his political donations was still the address in Spring. He was still registered to vote in that same house in Houston. Yet there's now a new voter registered in that house in Houston whose homestead exemption is in Galena Park. This is not an isolated case. The problems addressed in House Bill 1096 are real, and House Bill 1096 helps to fix them. Requiring that the residency address for voting matches the residency address claimed on any other government document, to me, is a no-brainer. It's just asking to match something instead of it being the only thing out there. Please advance House Bill 1096.
Okay.
Thank
Members, any questions? No. Thank you. Oh, Representative Schofield.
Mrs. Vera, are you telling us that your husband stole your story?
Yes, he did. Probably because he's heard it a few times.
Is he going to hear about this on the car on the way home?
Yes, he will. Okay, thank you.
Can't help that one. Okay, no other questions. All right, thank y'all very much. All right, Chair calls up Carol Kitson.
I've already provided some handouts for you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, come to the mic. First, introduce yourself.
My name is Carol Kitson, and I'm testifying for myself in favor of HB 1096. I have already provided a number of handouts. This weekend, I watched the archive video of the testimony during the committee's hearing of a very similar bill that was held in last session. The bill was attacked for allegedly not considering voter registrations by the homeless, the rural communities, and the impoverished citizens of Texas. Based on my experience reviewing voter registrations for a volunteer citizen election integrity group, the homeless, the rural, and the impoverished citizens with no proper residential street address are not really creating the majority of the issues with voter registration. The voters who are creating most problems are voters with multiple residential addresses. They're registered to vote at one address, but their car is registered at a different address, which is usually the same address for which they've requested and received a homestead tax exemption. Some others here may also address that issue as a separate, they did. Not only are the homeless, rural, and impoverished not focus of HB 1096, but Texas counties are bending over backward to accommodate the circumstances. Here's an example of the Harris, we've got one of these, of Harris County voter registration form. If you'll note, the box 3, the applicant is asked to fill in their street address and apartment number. The box then instructs, if none, describe where you live. So if it's under a bridge at Smith and I-10, that works. Box number 4 asks for a mailing address because the county voter registrar and county clerks need some way to communicate with a voter on occasion, and certainly to send out a registration card. Now, in contrast, I hold up here's the Texas Secretary of State that you can find online, and it does not have, the boxes are not numbered, and the Texas Secretary of State's online application does not allow for the same residential location description allowed by the counties, and I suspect that they can fix that. But it is the multiple address of voters that are the problem with our current registration system, not the homeless, rural, or impoverished voters. And these latter are being accommodated by the counties to the highest degree. I've also included 2 news articles for which voters were charged with voter fraud for registering as living at one address when they, other than where their actual residence, and they did so in order to be able to vote for a specific candidate or in a district, a utility district in which there was an entrance coming. And of course, interestingly enough, both of them did involve political candidates. So I'm asking you to please vote to clarify the language so that we have a clear-cut view of and can make the voter registrar's jobs easier and also make sure that our elections, our integrity is held up. Thank you very much. And please vote it out of the committee and pass it on.
Okay. Members, any questions? Representative Schofield.
Carol, you alluded to the 2 articles that you provided us. The one is a Montgomery County rural road utility district, and it looks like 10 people listed their voter registration as a hotel in the district so they could take over the board.
You know what? That's exactly the case. I mean, it's ridiculous when people will go to that extreme. Basically, those extremes to try to manipulate the political system. And the thing is, that hurts everyone in the county.
So under the current law, they're able to live in a house. We all know where they live. We play soccer with our kids play soccer with their kids. They can go register at a hotel for the purpose of voting in this election, where probably 12 people voted, take over the board, and now they're in charge of the bonds. They're in charge of potentially millions of dollars of spending.
Exactly. That's why it's not. It seems some might consider it a small problem, but as you can, from that example, you can see what a huge problem it can actually create.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Members, any other? Thank you
Thank you very much.
All right. Chair recognizes Glenn Maxey. Is he? There you are. And state.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members. My name is Glenn Maxey, and I am with the Texas Democratic Party, and I've registered in opposition to this bill because that's the only box.
And Mr. Maxey, former Representative Maxey, can you state the bill number, please?
House Bill 1096, Committee Substitute.
And tell me again, I didn't hear you, just for me, who you're representing.
The Texas Democratic Party.
Okay, got it.
I'm going to preference my comments telling a story from last session. Last session, I only owned bright blue Democratic blue shirts. Last session, the committee voted that I had to wear purple only, and that's why I have purple today, because I typically come here and talk in a bipartisan kind of way to improve election law. We can agree, the Texas Democratic Party, with the intent of everybody who's talked about this bill, that we need to shore up residency. The abuses that have been talked about are legend. We've heard them for a long time. I will tell my story of an abuse in East Texas. There is a RV park called the Escapees. They have 10 concrete pads. There are over 10,000 people registered to vote on those concrete pads, and not a single one of those RVs sits there today. It's a business where people from all over the country who are in RVs come to that county. They register their RV and get their lower registration fees in their home states, and they register to vote, establishing a residency so they do not have to pay income taxes in their home states. 10,000 people, 10 concrete pads. So yes, residency in Texas is a problem. Representative Schofield, For over the 40 years that I've been working up here, we watch every municipal utility district bill that passes. It creates a new board, and what happens? There's somebody living in a metal building in the middle of that blank field so that they can vote to pass tens of millions of dollars of bonds to build sewer systems and water systems. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff, and we should fix that. Our only problem today is sort of looking at this bill in the reality of the hierarchical kind of thing that's here. Clearly, we need to stop people from registering to vote at post office boxes and commercial mailbox companies. That's a problem. So all of those kinds of things we support. What we want to work with the representative on as we go forward is I particularly read this and about a whole handful of other election officials that are here today. Before the hearing, we were talking about this in the hierarchical kind of thing that a new voter is filling out a voter registration card and they must put their driver's license address on it. That causes a little bit of a voter registration problem, and this is why I say that. Driver's license lasts 6 years. I will ask people in several legislative offices yesterday or Friday and today, all of the staffers that are up here, are you registered to vote at the same address as your driver's license? Almost none of these 20-somethings are. Their driver's license is still at their parents' address. They still believe that that's their address for their driver's license. They're here working at the legislature, but they registered to vote perhaps in Austin to vote in the last election because they were here during the election season. So if you say hierarchically that you've got to use your driver's license as the first thing to register and your driver's license is not updated, you know, here's always the thing. Well, they should update their address. But in Austin, 60% of the people in this city are renters. They, on average, move once per year. They move once per year, the majority of people in this city. So, if you say that you've got to use your driver's license, and it's right before an election when in Travis County, some 20,000 people registered in the weeks before the deadline, and everybody's asked to use their driver's license address, nobody's going to have an updated driver's license. And so the people are going to register to vote at addresses where they're not residing. So we create another sort of problem. Now, as I talked to some of the proponents today, they said, well, we're not reading this as hierarchical, that you can have any of these. If it was any of these, we're favored. We're all in favor. So it's just the hierarchical thing of trying to make people fit a driver's license or a concealed handgun before you go to their mailing address. That's our problem.
Members, any questions? Representative Schofield?
Well, Mr. Maxey, by law, people are required to update their driver's license within 30 days of moving, right?
90 days.
Was it 90?
It's 30.
I think it's 30.
Yeah,
I think it's 30. But
I agree, but I understand that. But the issue is, will they have, when people are trying to register to vote, and will we get in a situation that lots of people will be disenfranchised because they figure out, oh, it's a day before the 30-day period to register, and my driver's license is not updated.
I read the bill as you do to be hierarchical, and I would presume it has to be that way to work. If you just said you can pick any one of these five, we're in no better shape than we are today. If we say the residence you get is the first one you qualify for, then we have a debate about which one it ought to be. And I have to be honest with you, I don't think I could go with where you get mail, which is probably the least. I mean, all these guys could have switched to get their mail at the hotel a lot easier than they're going to go get the driver's license and all that. I mean, wouldn't you think that's sort of the easiest one to fake if you're trying to do one of these things that we saw in the earlier examples to?
Oh, I agree. I'm just saying that trying to make people jump to several hoops at the very last period is going to cause a lot of people not to be able to jump through all of those hoops in the time period that they have.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
And we'll be glad to work with the author on trying to fix any of these tweaks. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Okay, Chair recognizes Ed Johnson. Now he's registered.
Ed Johnson. I'm with the Harris County Clerk's Office. and here we're testifying for HB 1069.
Okay.
1096, you're good, 1096, close enough. And I have also worked in the...
And I'm sorry, Mr. Johnson, you're testifying for... Okay, and you're representing...
the Harris County Clerk's Office.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, for the members. Also, I've worked in past in the voter registration office, so I've seen both sides of this issue. In fact, the first time that I was exposed to this was even before I was working for the county and helping a friend of mine, Dwayne Bohack, run, and he was walking his neighborhoods and going out with him and ran across a house that had 16 registered voters at it. And it ended up that it was his opponent's house. It was State Rep Kim Yarborough from years ago. But the really unknown secret that actually made the Houston Chronicle, had a neat little cartoon about it, is the old man in the shoe, was he actually had a garage behind his house that was the subunit that he had 5 more people registered at. And in saying that, it actually goes on both sides. I will tell you right now, currently, our county judge in Harris County has 14 people registered at his office. He doesn't know who they are, but they are all voting. So residency is an intent of mine. It's where you intend right now to register, and people are registering everywhere to vote. The one that I mentioned before with why it really hurts the county clerk's office with Ken Yarborough or Dwayne Bohack race is when you have close elections within litigation margins, we get into these big fights over residency. And what is that intent of mind of the voter, which cost our office tons of time and money. The Heflin-Bowe race, which some of y'all may remember here, went back. It was a very close race, very heavily conceded. Our office probably spent 6 months pulling documents of every voter registration card, every poll list, every signature, so that they could compare to see where people were registered and where they weren't, to try to have this intent. Cost our office, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Cost both candidates, I heard, close to the millions in litigation over residency. Cost State Rep Dwayne Bohack, when he sued Yarborough, hundreds of thousands of dollars over residency. It is a very tough issue when it is a state of mind of where you register. And what we like about this bill is that it puts some order to it, so hopefully a judge can sit down and go down a checklist and say, yes, no, you're in the district or you're not, so that we can get by with these ongoing lawsuits. Currently, there's a lawsuit in Harris County over the Harris County Community College. Harris County Houston Community College. A fellow by the name of Steve Wilson registered to vote at his place of business, won the election, and seated an incumbent for many years. I think he was the president of the board. And, the Harris County attorney has been trying to correct that wrong now for 3 or 4 appeals, which has cost tons of money from the taxpayers and tons of money on the candidate's side. We would hope that we could put some definition to this so we can stop the madness in our office, because when we get into these election contests, it takes us forever to settle them. It's a very, very difficult thing to do.
Any questions, members?
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, Mr. Johnson, can you come back for a second? Okay, so now they show you as twice being registered.
Okay.
So I do not deal with the technology, so I only respond to what we need. So what I need you to do is to call your name again and make sure there's not another Ed Johnson. Is there another Ed Johnson out there?
It could be.
There's no other Ed Johnson to be confused with this Ed Johnson.
I have it on good authority, no one wants to be Ed Johnson.
Okay. Is that it?
That is all.
Okay, thank you. You are the only Ed Johnson.
As
But you
far as I
had
know in this
registered.
room.
You had registered. It did not look like you had registered,
No,
Right.
but now it caught up with you.
that's right. I'm
Not to be
reg-
confused with being registered to vote
twice. No, I'm not registered to vote
Only to
twice.
testify.
No, only in my residency,
Okay,
where I keep my driver's license updated.
thank you. Okay. Computers. Okay, so now Chair calls up Cheryl Swift.
She left.
She left. Okay, so Cheryl Swift Cheryl Swift is for the bill, 1096, and chooses not to testify. Okay.
We only have these two.
Okay, and they do not wish to testify. No other witnesses? Okay. All right, is there anyone else who wishes to testify for, against, or on the measure on 1096? All right.
And then you can.
And
I think I saw a hand.
did we see a hand?
I registered.
Okay. Why don't you just come up to the microphone, we'll get this cleared up. Did you register outside?
I registered just, out of one of the classes.
Okay, all right. For the record, go ahead and state your name.
My name is Janice Evans. I'm the elections director for Missouri County, Texas, and I'm here representing the county and district clerks of Texas, the association.
Can she repeat her last name, please?
Okay, can you repeat your last name, please?
Janice Evans. I'm registered on 2 bills.
Did you register on 1096?
I did on 1096 and
Okay, no,
622.
we're just talking 1096 right now. Hold off.
And that's spelled.
I don't know.
EVANS.
I'm sorry.
Okay. We must have a few.
1288, so it must not have gone through on 1096. So
But you may.
Let's go ahead and get you registered for 1096.
just go back out if you might, don't mind.
Can you help her get that?
Would you like me to help?
Okay. All right, is there anyone else who technically has registered? Oh my, this is saying a lot about technology, isn't it? So, okay. All right, just bear with us. We're working out the kinks.
The 2-bill registration. It sounds like
The 2 bills, yeah, they try to register on 2 bills at one time. Tick-tock. No.
But they're only speak on one bill.
Is she coming? Okay.
May want to play some internet.
Okay. Members, we do have Keith Ingram, Secretary of State, who is here on the bill for 1096. If y'all have any questions for the office? No questions? Oh, okay. Well, Keith, can you come up?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Keith Ingram, I'm with Secretary of State's Elections Division, and I am neutral on House Bill 1096.
Representative Reynolds.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had a few questions as I was looking over the bill. Will the residency requirements have to be met at the time of registration, or only if the registration is challenged?
The bill, as it's worded, doesn't. I mean, what it says is that when somebody registers to vote, they need to register it in this list order. So if you've got a driver's license, you need to register to vote at that address. Now, if somebody doesn't, there's no way for a voter registrar to check that on the front end. So, if a voter doesn't follow that list and vote, registers to vote somewhere else, then the only way that would ever be brought up is if someone made a challenge, like Mr. Vera was talking about. And if a challenge is made to a voter's residency, the remedy for that is the voter registrar sends a confirmation notice to the voter and says, are you sure this is where you want to claim your residency? And if the voter affirms that is their address, that's the end of the hunt. The next step after that is to refer them to a district attorney for lying.
Okay. Now, if they have to prove their residency, where do they send the necessary documentation? Who do they send that documentation to?
When a confirmation notice is sent from the voter registrar will have a return address in there for the voter to respond to. So any proof of evidence of the residence will be sent back to the voter registrar.
Okay. The only other question I had is, what happens in the event that you have someone who is, homeless or something like that? How would they prove their residency?
I don't know. The bill provides for an affidavit in that circumstance where the homeless person would describe a physical location, and I don't know how they would do that other than submitting another affidavit that would say the same thing.
Okay, so basically they would have to submit the affidavit.
That's right.
Okay. Thank you.
Members, any other questions? Secretary of State's office? Okay. Thank you, Keith.
Thank you.
All right, and also John Oldman with the Texas Association of Election Administrators is here. If y'all have any questions, he's here to speak on the bill.
For this bill, did I not show up as being registered?
Come up to the microphone.
I think I did 4 or 5. Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee, Representative Reynolds represents part of my county, Fort Bend. Pleasure to be here. I am speaking today on...
State your name. You need to state your name.
John Oldham.
Yeah, who you represent, and
I am speaking on behalf of the Texas Association of Election Administrators, of which I'm the current president. And talking about House Bill 1096. And I've changed my mind on this bill. It's a good thing I'm testifying neutrally because I've changed my mind 3 or 4 times this morning in conversation with different people. But last week we sent this bill on Thursday afternoon to our membership and other persons in the election community. And we got back a common response. Well, it's wonderful that this bill addresses the issue of commercial mailboxes. That is, Keith and I were going back and forth on emails last week about this. It is a huge issue, and it is a proliferating issue. I drive by 7 commercial mailbox establishments between my home and my office each day, 14 if I go home. So this addresses that, and we commend the sponsor for doing so. We also had concerns, and one of the concerns that was universally expressed by those who voiced an opinion had to do with, would this be applied to Election Day voting in some form, shape, or fashion? We met with Senator Murphy's staff. They say no, it will only apply to issues of election contests. And we also tried to get an answer in terms of, is this hierarchical or isn't it hierarchical? And maybe that doesn't matter too much, but we would prefer it to be a little bit more concrete for this to say they shall be in this order, not just have them out there. The other thing we would like to see is some affirmation as to what this is really, this deals with election contests perhaps, or this should not be language modified so that it cannot be interpreted as a of address verification ID bill on election day. That would open up a nightmare for our poll workers. That this only, I know it's in the section on registration, but everybody who looked at this had the same question, and if everybody has the same concern and question, there may be an issue there where the language could be made more concrete. But otherwise, we certainly appreciate the concept. I'm a former Illinois election official. I've seen 3-room boarding houses with 45 people registered to vote there. So this is clearly goes in the right direction in order to establish, and most states are like us, that residency is a state of mind or matter of intent. So clearly this is a good thing. We would just like a little bit more clarity, or at least that's what my membership says.
Members, any questions? Okay, thank you very
Thank you.
much. All right, now the chair calls up Janice Evans. We got it this time. Now, again, state your name, who you represent, what bill you're testifying on. Very important there, and your position.
My name is Janice Evans. I'm the Missouri County Elections Director. I work under County Clerk Joyce Hudman, and I'm here testifying for the County and District Clerks Association of Texas. John was the elections administrators. This is the other half of the people that hold the elections in Texas. The county clerks usually are the elections administrators. Originally, I signed up against it.
Right, now you're testifying on...
For House Bill 1096.
And your position, as you're testifying here today.
Today is going to be neutral.
Neutral, okay.
Okay. I'm like John, things have changed since we got here. Because we did the same thing. You send out an email, tell us what you think of this bill. Everybody said we were going to turn our election judges into address police. If the way this bill reads, that I understand it, they're ranked in order of priority. I did hear somebody else say that, and nobody contradicted it earlier. So, if you have a Texas driver's license, you should be registered at that address. Is that what you get from this bill? What we're worried about is the people show up to vote with the voter ID. You have a driver's license. It's not the same address that they're registered. We do not want our election people turned into address police. Now, he did say the amended bill says only in challenges, but our worry is we totally commend them for this bill. Please don't take it that we're against. We love what they're doing. But we're here to protect ourselves as the elections people for unintended consequences. Just like even the voter ID bill, we were all for it, but then there came some unintended consequences that led to a lot of bookwork and paperwork. So that's what we want. We think it needs to be revised to answer more questions so that people do not think that that's going to have to happen at the voting. We do not want it to happen at the voting locations.
Members, any other Representative Reynolds?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. And I guess I should have asked John the same question. What revisions would you like to see to make it more succinct or for more clarity? What would you like to see specifically?
Well, when we see it, do you agree if you were working at an election place and you said, do you still live at this address and the address on your driver's license is different? We don't know what could happen later that it doesn't apply on election day voting. And I guess we need something to say it's only for purposes, and of course they did put the thing only for contested, but that's not what we had before we got here today. So I don't know if
is there some
clears it
additional
up.
language that you have in your mind or your association has that you'd like to see the bill drafter?
I'm not an attorney, so
Okay.
I really wouldn't. John might have a better idea. We just want to make sure we don't get these repercussions down the line that we have to turn our workers into address police.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, members? Okay. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify for, against, or on House Bill 1096? Okay, with that, then Chair recognizes Chairman Murphy to close.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Committee members, thank you for your patience through all the technical issues. I want to thank my witnesses for registering and re-registering, as the case may be. We really appreciate your consideration of this, the questions y'all have. Clearly, there's an issue when you have a bill filed and then you provide a substitute that the folks haven't seen. We'll continue to work with people, make sure they understand the bill. As you heard, people were against the bill until they understood, oh, there's a substitute, and maybe that language has been addressed. But we'll meet back with those folks, make sure you get that information. You heard from people that are over in charge of elections. You heard from people in charge of registering. Activists saying, like you, they've had personal experience with the problems of the current system. And so we are trying to be hierarchical with this list. I think it's a fairly easy tweak to make. We've also been very specific about the language in the bill, what documents are there, and situations where it applies. In a challenge is when we're trying to do that. We've also been very specific about the exemptions. The military, people with protected identities, full-time students are all exempt. The notion of the driver's license, I want to kind of come back to that because that's really important. And Representative Schofield, you were talking about the law does currently hold that you have to register your license within 30 days. That's Transportation Code 521054. I wanted to cite that, Representative Goldman, Vice Chair, because my staff worked so hard to find that site. And I do have good staff. And I want to point out, if you register to vote, you can't vote for 30 days. Coincidentally, that's the same 30-day period you should be updating your driver's license. And by the time you go to vote, bingo, if you're following the current laws, everything would match up. Our assumption is people are going to follow the laws. I recognize that doesn't always happen, but these are the laws we have. So you have plenty of time to have your documents in line on the day of voting. In fact, you're kind of supposed to. But we will continue to work with people to do that. Representative Rowan, you asked about the homeless people. The homeless people and the rural voters, the impoverished, are one of the reasons you have the opt-out for the affidavit. You simply say, I live on 6th Street between Lavaca and Guadalupe, and we're good to go on that. That's a specific location that would actually fit the code. But all this to say, we want people to vote where they live and live where they vote, tie those two together in a reasonable way that keeps everybody voting. That's key, but also establishes integrity within our election process. So with that, I close, Madam Chair. I do want to ask for your favorable consideration, but I will not ask you to do that until we have a chance to circle back with some of these folks and make sure they either understand the substitute we've provided or that we've tweaked some language to make it something they can support, and we'll let you guys know that.
Okay.
So, happy to answer any questions y'all might have.
Nothing else? Anything else?
Thank you for your patience.
All right, then the chair withdrawal substitute to House Bill 1096, and then House Bill 1096 will be left pending at this time. Okay, so now, let's see. Next we will, Chair lays out House Bill 1288 for consideration and recognizes Representative Simpson to explain your bill. Simmons, gosh.
Simmons.
Get him confused
Okay.
myself.
I'm not offering any brownies to the committee.
Simmons.
Madam Chair and members, I would like to lay out House Bill 1288 and want to thank you for your consideration. Now, with the utmost respect for my committee members on the opposite side of the political aisle, I'll tell you right up front, this is a Republican bill. The purpose of this bill is to increase the number of Republican elected officials throughout the state of Texas. However, I do believe the added benefits will be a more educated voter. With any depth of reading of the writings of our founding fathers, it is clear that our republic was established assuming voter base that was educated on the issues of the day, as well as the candidates that were running for political office. Texas is now only one of 10 states that has straight ticket voting. The trend has been to eliminate straight ticket voting, and as recently as this year, another state, West Virginia, has passed legislation to eliminate straight ticket voting. The reasons for Republicans are clear. As the analysis in the articles that are in your Dropbox shows, where there are large concentrations of Republicans, there's a much less ballot runoff than in Democratic voter concentrated areas. Vote roll-off is the reduction in votes for the candidate at the top of the ticket versus the candidate at the bottom of the ticket. Finally, the elimination of straight ticket voting, and this was kind of interesting to find this out. It will improve the number of votes cast for ballot measures, so nonpartisan ballot measures. The November 14th, the November 2014 general election gave us two great contrasting examples. Here in Texas, there were 4.7 million votes cast for governor between Governor Abbott and Senator Davis. However, for Proposition 1, the big thing on transportation that we all remember, there were only 4 million votes cast, a drop-off of 15%. In Georgia, there was also a hotly contested governor's race. You'll remember the former President Carter's grandson ran for governor there. In fact, it was only a 52-44, and there was a third in there. But there was also a ballot measure, and that ballot measure prohibited the legislature from raising personal state income tax. So I think you'd agree that was a pretty important issue, correct? Well, there were 2.55 million votes cast in the governor's race and 2.51 million votes cast on the ballot measure, only a 1.7% drop-off. The difference, Georgia does not have straight ticket voting. So on tight ballot measures, straight ticket voting could make those go either way. Summarizing, the elimination of straight party ticket voting will do the following three things. It will elect more Republicans. It'll improve participation in ballot measures. It'll encourage a more educated electorate. Thank you for consideration, Madam Chair, and I'd reserve the right to close.
Okay, I want to make sure you woke us all up this afternoon, and I think you certainly did, Representative Simmons. So, having said that, are there any questions or?
Madam Chair.
Oh, Representative.
Representative Simmons, I noticed that you're not wearing your purple tie today.
This is, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay,
yeah,
you do so well, too.
Let's see. All right, and you reserve the right to close?
Yes, ma'am, I did. Yes, reserve the right to close.
No other questions, members? All right, so now, who do we have here? All right, we'll start the testimony. The chair calls former Representative Glenn Maxey. Wearing his purple today. You want to strip that purple off right now?
No, actually, we are, I think, maybe be in agreement with the Republican Party of Texas today on this bill. I'm Glenn Maxey with the Democratic Party, testifying against House Bill 1288, that across Texas, in our major urban areas especially, we have exceedingly long ballots with in almost 100 judges on the Harris County ballot or the Dallas County ballot. And having voters have to go through and mark each of those people all the way down instead of being able to punch one button and be done means that people are going to be standing in line for hours and hours because it's going to take people not 10 minutes in a booth, but a half hour in a booth to do that kind of marking all of those ballots. We have registered against this bill, but I will tell you that, contrary to what Representative Simmons says, I'm here to say that in some cases, our party, well, in a lot of cases, our party is very split on this. If you live in an urban area, the Democratic Party and the activists there believe straight ticket voting inures to the benefit of down-ballot judges and local officers. But across rural Texas, I was in a meeting on Saturday where there were, I think, 12 county chairs in rural Texas. To a person, they wanted to do away with straight ticket voting. Because if you do away with straight ticket voting in rural Texas, local Democrats running for constable or JP or a county commissioner may be able to actually win those races. So it's sort of a split decision among our activists, but at this point, on behalf of our party, we're taking a position opposed to removing straight ticket voting.
Okay, members, any questions? Okay, thank you very much. So, in the spirit of Kumbaya, the chair calls Bill Fairbrother.
Good afternoon again. Bill Fairbrother, Legislative Director of the Texas Republican County Chairmen's Association and Williamson County Republican Party Chair, testifying on House Bill 1288. Kind of as
And your position?
we are officially I'm testifying on. I think so. How did I register?
You registered against.
I don't. Oh, okay. I registered. I will speak against then. I'm wearing two hats. Easy enough. Well, this is one of those instances where.
I said kumbaya.
Yeah. Yes. Personally, as the chair of the Williamson County Republican Party, I oppose.
So say that again.
Okay.
You are testifying.
I'm testifying against.
Okay.
With that, I will acknowledge that it's very narrowly against as a statewide organization. We did a survey of our party chairs. Over 100 of them participated. 39% of our party chairs supported ending straight ticket voting. 49% opposed ending straight party voting. So while a plurality came out against ending straight party voting, there is a split in probably the rural versus urban discussion of earlier. I did want to share a specific case to discuss the long lines. In 2014, in Williamson County, 58,078 voters cast straight ticket votes for one of the four parties, out of 104,000 cast, or over 55% of our votes cast in the November general election were straight ticket voters. Think of all the additional machines, clerks, potential polling places if 55% of our voters, instead of being able to click one box and take care of those races, had to go back and choose between, on average, 25 separate races. And I understand Harris, Dallas County, there's a whole lot more races. That is an added expense to the local counties. We'd probably have to buy more machines, possibly open more polling places, and certainly the lines would be much longer if we didn't do any of those steps to alleviate.
Okay, so you're saying you would need more machines because
More average time per voter
to go down
per,
the
yes.
list. I see.
And so in that sense, we're against it. And since one of these rare instances, I guess I get to stand up here and agree with Glenn.
Okay, members.
Thank you.
Any questions? All right, thank you very much.
Actually, not that rare.
All right, Chair calls Mark Miller with the Libertarian Party.
Madam Chair, committee members, my name is Mark Miller. I'm the legislative coordinator for the Libertarian Party of Texas, as well as my party's 2014 candidate for Texas Railroad Commissioner. LP Texas supports House Bill 1288. Straight ticket voting was a common occurrence in U.S. politics through the 1960s. Yet, as we heard from Representative Simmons, only 10 states continue to have a straight party voting option. In the last couple of decades, 10 states have eliminated straight party voting, and interestingly, this trend occurred during an era of increasing partisan polarization and decreasing ticket splitting. Austin Community College's Center for Public Policy and Political Studies estimated that in the last general election, over 60% of Texas voters used the straight party option. This is up from 49% in 2000, a worrying trend in our opinion. In 2014, 99% of straight party votes were for the Democratic and Republican parties. Only 1% went to the other two parties on the ballot, even though races such as my own, over 5% of the total vote was for the Libertarian and Green Party candidates. We believe it is a legitimate question to ask whether people should be discouraged from casting an easy party line vote or whether they should be afforded the convenience of doing so. What we know, however, is that straight party voting has its most deleterious effect on down ballot races. The best example of this was in the 2014 election for Texas Agricultural Commissioner. Jim Hogan, the Democratic candidate, raised no campaign funds, ran no campaign, and even refused to talk to the media. Yet the percentage of votes for Mr. Hogan was a mere 2 points behind the Democratic candidate for governor. The only information Texas voters had for this important executive position was that Mr. Hogan was a Democrat. Rising political polarization and the consequent public distaste for politics seems to be going hand in hand. Voter identification with the two major parties is at an all-time low. Voter participation, especially among the young, is abysmal. And a recent Gallup poll indicates that the public considers government to be the most important problem facing the country. Though it is unclear how much ending straight party voting will improve voter engagement, passing House Bill 1288 will, in a small way at least, place more focus on individual candidates rather than simplistic party versus party, us versus them politics as usual. Voters will not be prevented from continuing to vote straight party if they so choose. The only change House Bill 1288 will bring is the necessity for voters to read and actively engage in the entire general election ballot. This is bound to be good for our democracy. It is time for Texas to join the other 40 states and eliminate straight party voting. Thank you. I'll be glad to answer questions.
Any questions, members? Okay, thank you. All right, the chair calls Tom Glass with the League of Independent Voters.
Hello, I'm Tom Glass. I'm speaking for the League of Independent Voters of Texas, and I'm speaking in favor of House Bill 1288. I'm also speaking for myself. I and the League favor this bill because it's good government. We want to have the best candidate come out of the process as possible. That means we need to have voters be as informed as possible to be able to reach that objective. Encouraging one-punch, straight-ticket voting encourages people to not make informed decisions. I think people desperately want the party label to mean something in all cases, at all times, but each one of you, I'm sure, with your involvement in politics, leads you to know that that's just simply not the case. In Harris County, the Democratic Party has troubles at times. In Fort Bend County, Representative Reynolds has times with Lyndon LaRouche supporters coming in and swamping not only party offices, but also as well elective offices. And of course, the Republican Party in other states have had their David Dukes, that sort of thing. If you can file your fee and nobody else plops down the money and you're the only person for the candidate, there's nothing a party can do but from stopping being represented by somebody who's got a criminal record, etc. So encouraging people to think that the label means something or that they're going to get good quality all the way down the ticket through a label is just not wrong, and it leads to bad results. I would also say that I think both parties, if you've heard from both parties here today, and the people who, in those parties who are opposed to this bill think they can do that because they can game the system better than the other party. I don't think we should be playing games with our elected officials in our voting system. It's not a game, it's serious business, and we need to be informed as greatly as possible. And I think sometimes the people who think they can play the games do know what they're talking about. I think you have off-election years, presidential election years, Democrats seem to turn out more and can game the system better. Off-election years, Republicans seem to game the system better. And of course, we've already talked about the rural versus urban split. One of the things in the rural counties is that so many times you've got county clerks or sheriffs or people that really are doing their job on a partisan basis, but can be swept after doing years of good service, can be swept out of office by one of these big waves that comes along in either presidential or non-presidential election years. So one other thing I would like to say is that if we're going to do this, getting rid of straight ticket voting, I think we ought to go with Representative Simmons' approach and this bill's approach, which is go all the way. Halfway measures won't cut it. If you think voters are confused now, think about if you can do a one punch, but that only applies to part of the ballot, and then you have to remember or know to go down to the bottom of the ballot. I think that will create more confusion, and so we need to do it all the way or not do it at all. And I think that's the conclusion of my testimony, but I'm happy to take questions if anybody wants to ask.
Any questions, members?
Yes.
Representative Israel.
Thank you for your testimony today. I think what you're saying is that
if voters have to take more time reviewing the ballot, they'll be more thoughtful voter?
Yes.
Do you agree that if they have to be more thoughtful, then that might take more time to vote?
Yes.
Do you think that it's worth it because there'll be more time, that the long lines and perhaps the expense of buying more machines, that it's worth it for Texas to make that kind of investment so that voters will be more thoughtful about their vote?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that question. I believe that getting it right is worth spending extra resources and extra time.
Okay. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Any other questions, members? All right. Then Chair calls Colleen Vera, speaking for herself again. I'm going to call you before your husband in case you get the story first.
Hi, my name is Colleen Vera again, and I'm here today. I'm representing myself, and I'm against House Bill 1288. I live in Harris County and write a blog on government waste. I can't imagine the added cost to the taxpayers if this bill becomes law. Harris County had a fire a few years ago which destroyed our voting equipment, and the cost to replace it was $35 million. When over 120 positions, this is our last ballot. See the little bitty lines and the little bitty squares. If this was our last one, if we did not have straight party ticket voting, then the 800,000 people plus who chose to do straight party voting would end up having to go line by line. And if you've ever worked elections and watched the little old ladies come in their walkers, they want to do it themselves, and they sit there and they work at those machines. They'd have to go through each and every little voter, and those poor ladies would never get through this. Also, as a teacher, retired teacher, I understand the more chances you give someone to make a mistake, the more mistakes you're going to have. So if people have to go and do every single one, they're probably going to end up voting sometime for something they didn't really intend to vote for. An extra 10 minutes for each of those 800,000 voters. Mathematically, I can't figure that out, but I'm sure it would mean a major increase in the need for voting machines, and even just 1/3 increase would be $10 million just in Harris County alone. Statewide, another gentleman testified that 60% of the voters chose straight party ticket, so that's a lot more machines and a lot more money that's going to cost the taxpayers. I know you guys came here to pass laws. And sometimes, though, I think common sense needs to kick in a little bit. If it's not broken, please don't waste taxpayer money trying to fix it. Thank
Members,
you. Y'all have any questions?
Any questions, members? Okay. Thank you very much. All right. Chair calls Janice Evans with the County and District Clerks Association. Janice, did you want to testify? Okay. All right. You're here registering against the bill. Okay. All right. Chair calls Willie O'Brien, Mountain View College Student Government. Is Willie here to testify on the bill? And I don't see him. So, okay. Chair calls Wayne Thorburn, representing himself, against the bill, but you need to state all that.
Thank you, Chairman Laudenberg. My name is Wayne Thorburn. I'm speaking for myself in opposition to House Bill 1288. I have also submitted some written testimony for each of you, which I hope you will have an opportunity to consider subsequently. During most of the 20th century, the Democratic Party was the dominant political force in Texas, and as such, the vast majority of straight party votes were cast for Democratic slate of candidates. This occurred at a time when the Democratic slate might well include a supporter of George McGovern and a supporter of George Wallace, an ardent civil rights advocate for one position and an unreconstructed segregationist for another. Those who voted a straight party ticket in those years were really buying a pig in a poke. They didn't know exactly what they were getting, except they were getting someone who called themselves a Democrat. In the 21st century that we're in now, however, the two political parties have become much more clearly differentiated in overall ideology, in specific policy stands, and outlook towards the appropriate role of government. In virtually every election contest today, the Democratic candidate will be politically to the left of the Republican candidate. An analysis by a conservative organization rating the members of the last legislative session indicated that all 55 then Democratic state representatives had a more liberal voting record in this House of Representatives than all 95, I hope my math was right there, 95 Republicans. And that is the case with the congressional delegation and any number of others. Even studies have shown that in terms of judicial decisions, there is a clear-cut differentiation on questions of the role of government, the community interest versus individual rights between Democratic and Republican judges. With this clear differentiation, the decision to vote for all of a party's candidates becomes a more logical decision and one that is being made by an increasing number of Texas voters. From less than, as was indicated earlier, 1/2 of all votes at the end of the 20th century being straight ticket, straight party votes now account for more than 60% of all ballots, according to data collected by the Center for Public Policy and Political Studies at the Austin Community College. For example, in the 2014 election last November, more than two-thirds of all voters used the straight ticket option in Harris County, Fort Bend County, and Montgomery County. Eliminating the straight party or straight ticket option would not only fly in the face of the more than 60% of Texas voters who chose to use it, but would also have several deleterious effects on our political system. First of all, remember again, more than 4.7 million Texas voters selected the straight ticket option in the 2012 presidential election, while some 2.7 million did so in the lower overall turnout gubernatorial election of 2014. In fact, since 2004, a majority of Texas voters have used the straight ticket option in every election except 2006, which, as you will recall, was a different type of election in that it had 4 major candidates for governor. The question then becomes for this committee in the House, is it appropriate to take away an option currently used by a majority of the Texas electorate? Secondly, in our more populous counties, as you just was given the evidence from Harris County, where voters are asked to make as many as 100 decisions on candidates for public office, very few voters will be familiar with the names, let alone the policy stances and public records of many candidates seeking their votes. This is especially true of countywide judicial offices. Retaining the straight ticket option allows voters to select candidates on the basis of party affiliation, rather than on some basis such as gender, race, ethnicity, attractiveness of a candidate's name, or the endorsement of some non-representative special interest group or slate maker. Third, eliminating the straight ticket option will greatly increase the cost of campaigns for down-ballot races. Take away the straight ticket option, and candidates for down-ballot races will be forced to raise and spend campaign dollars so that they can more widely publicize their names, so that voters will recall the candidate's name and continue casting a vote on these lower ballot races. More money will need to be raised for radio, television, billboards, and direct mail campaigns to promote these individual candidates if there is no straight ticket option to provide voters in these down ballot races. Down ballot candidates will be forced to stress building name recognition and wooing support from wealthy donors and special interest groups. Fourth, eliminating the straight ticket option will result in even fewer voters taking part in down ballot contests. Without the ability to cast a straight ticket vote at the top of the ballot, more and more voters are not going to be there for the 30 minutes to fill out the ballot. They're going to experience what is known as voter fatigue and simply refrain from voting in down ballot races. Any analysis of election returns shows that when people are faced with a daunting number of ballot decisions, voter fatigue sets in and the participation drop-off by the end of the ballot can be substantial. And at a time of concern over lower voter turnout in Texas, should the state be taking away an option that facilitates greater voter participation in down ballot contests? Now, Representative Simmons brought up the question from a partisan point of view. First of all, I do have my red tie on along with my blue shirt, so I'm trying to in the presentation so far, represent this from what has been called a good government point of view. But it does bring up the question of which party benefits the most from straight ticket voting. Since 1998, and the beginning of what I would refer to as the era of Republican dominance in Texas, the Republican Party has received a majority of straight ticket votes. The party's percentage reached a high of more than 6 in every 10 straight ticket votes in both 2012, the presidential year, and 2014, the gubernatorial election year, providing all statewide Republican candidates, including the low visibility and down ballot candidates, with an advantage of from 550,000 to 600,000 votes over any Democratic opponent. So from the partisan point of view, if one wants to look at that, straight ticket voting is definitely an advantage statewide for Republican candidates, especially the low visibility races such as Court of Criminal Appeals, Supreme Court, etc. Texas voters realize that there is a clear difference between the two major political parties, that it's impossible to know the qualifications, public records, and policy stands of all candidates listed on a general election ballot, and that an intelligent choice in such a situation is to cast a straight ticket vote. This option should not be denied to Texas voters. In consideration of this, I urge you to recommend a do not pass on House Bill 1288. Thank you very much.
Members, any questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Chair calls Beth Kubriel with the Republican Party of Texas, speaking against the bill.
Thank you for having me today. My name is Beth Kubriel. I'm the Executive Director of the Republican Party of Texas, and I'm here to speak against House Bill 1288. Even though we are against this bill, I would like to thank Representative Simmons for introducing it. I understand that he is representing what he believes to be the best interest of his district, and we at the RPT applaud that. Y'all are obviously hearing a lot of election bills this session, and the RPT will not be coming and speaking to you on every bill. We are working very closely with the County Chairs Association to coordinate our opinions on the election bills and defer to them for testimony on most cases. However, in this case, our SREC feels so strongly against eliminating the straight ticket option that they passed a resolution, which I'll have in front of you, and asked me to come over here and testify. I won't read to you what I know y'all are capable of reading yourself. I will just reiterate to you our opposition to this bill, and also ask that at a time when everybody in the world tries to make things easier, that by eliminating straight ticket voting, y'all are making voting in down ballot races in these large counties very difficult. I would also like to add that a thoughtful, well-informed voter will have the option, does currently have the option, will continue to have the option to vote a straight ticket ballot, and if he or she decides to do so, can mark one box for straight ticket and then scroll down and vote for the opposing party's nominee on any number of other offices. So instead of voting 120 boxes in a county the size of Harris, they could vote just a few boxes to have multiple parties represented on their ballot. Thank you.
Any questions, members? Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you for coming. All right, Chair recognizes Kat Swift, representing herself and the Green Party, in favor of the bill.
Good afternoon, Chair members. Committee members. It's been a while since I've testified. My name is Kat Swift. I am co-chair of the Green Party of Texas. And personally, the party and I are...
You're representing yourself.
And the party, Green Party of Texas, for House Bill 1288.
So you're speaking for House Bill 1288?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Originally, I wasn't going to speak because just show that we were in favor, but then some of the comments kind of got to me, so I thought I would say something. These rules were created by the party that was in power at the time, which is the Democratic Party, and the Republican Party now wants to keep it because they're the party in power. So that raises some red flags. And if 40 other states can figure out how to do this, I think maybe Texans can figure it out too. And since 70% of the population eligible to vote did not vote in 2014, maybe getting those people to vote would increase the cost. But if it's an election machine problem, then perhaps we should go back to hand-counted paper ballots, which is what we support as well. The voting machines complicate voting as it is and actually make it a lot harder to vote and take a lot longer. I personally prepare my ballot before I go because I can't stand up and do things for a long time anymore. So I have to get a sample ballot and fill it all out before I go to the ballot. And maybe if we educated people on voting, instead of just telling them to go vote straight ticket, maybe they would do this in the future. I agree with the Libertarian Party speaker and the League of Independent Voters speaker about the issues that they brought up. And I do not think that it makes voting easier. I think it actually disenfranchises people from voting, because if you look at the voting rolls, turnouts, they have consistently gone down for the last 10 years. And that has been since electronic voting. Straight ticket voting was already in place. Somebody mentioned this, that the down ballot, a couple people mentioned that down ballot candidates would have to work harder, and I don't see how that's a problem. If a candidate is riding the coach strings of a governor or presidential candidate, then is that somebody really you want in office that's not going to go out and talk about their issues, that's not going to address the populace, that's not going to campaign like the person who ran for the state office last time on the Democratic Party ticket did not campaign at all and still got straight ticket votes. So I think it would behoove us to put some faith in people and allow them to figure the ballots out on their own and not worry so much about whether people are going to get fatigued, and maybe look at how we can reduce the complexity of the voting system as it is, as opposed to keeping basically a power play structure in place and continue to call it democracy. Thank you.
Members, any questions? Okay, thank you very much for coming. All right, we have Ashley Fisher with the Secretary of State here on the bill, if you have any questions, members. And we have John Oldman with the Texas Association of Elections Administrators, also on the bill, if y'all have any questions. Okay. And we have Alan Vera with the Harris County Republican Party, not wishing to testify. He's against the bill. Against? Okay, against, not wishing to testify. We have Karen Hobson representing herself against the bill, does not wish to testify. All this is on 1288. We have Carol Kitson representing herself against 1288. John Hobson, self, against the bill, not wishing to testify. Cheryl Johnson, Galveston County Tax Assessor Collector, against 1288, does not wish to testify. Jacqueline Callanan, I said that, messed up part, apologize. Bear County Elections on the bill, does not wish to testify. Cheryl Swift, Galveston County Tax Office, against the bill, does not wish to testify. Rachel Kreider, Galveston County Tax Office, against the bill, does not wish to testify. Michael Macheco, Texas Farm Bureau, and if I said that wrong, I apologize. He is for the bill, does not wish to testify. Craig McDonald, against the bill, does not wish to testify. Joanne Richards, against the bill, does not wish to testify. And let's see, we have Keith Ingram with Secretary of State's office on the bill. Members, any questions? Okay. And Adam Greeley himself for the bill, does not wish to testify. Yanis Banks against the bill, himself, representing himself, does not wish to testify. Michael Navar, representing himself against the bill, does not wish to testify. And Susan N., no full last name, representing herself against the bill, does not wish to testify. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify for or against or on House Bill 1288?
Madam Chairman, I registered as being neutral, but may I speak to the bill?
Come up to the microphone and introduce yourself again.
Thank you, ma'am. I am John Oldham, Elections Administrator in Fort Bend County and President of the Texas Association of Elections Administrators. If I was speaking personally to this bill,
You're speaking on?
I'm sorry, 1288.
Okay, and you're on it.
I am
neutral.
Yes, ma'am. I am neutral in my capacity as president of the TAEA, and part of that comes from my experiences in Fort Bend County, and some of this has already been alluded to. In the last two general elections, 75% of my voters began their ballot with a straight party mark. Okay, last November, almost 45% stopped at that point. We can argue about how whether that's good government, bad government, whether it's good politics or bad politics, and that is why I registered as being neutral on this, because I perceive it as a very political issue, and as an election administrator, I'm sworn to be nonpartisan. But I will tell you this, one of the things that I've recently read, the state of Maryland, which last year did away with straight party voting, and now but they also did regression analysis to show that for every 100 words added to a ballot, it took a voter 26 seconds to read those words. Now, that's not just marking, that's not thinking about who they're going to vote for, that's not marking a ballot, but 26 seconds just to read the info. Now, I'm not Harris County, I'm in their shadow, but we had in November between 38 and 40 contests on every ballot. I checked the number of words, and it would add over 3 minutes just reading that ballot to my vote, to the average person's voting time. That's not voting the ballot, that's not thinking about who they're going to vote for, that's simply reading the content. We know that from the Pew Center, one of the main reasons that people don't vote is that they go to a polling place, and this was from a vote center study, and they see a long line, and they go home. We will have longer lines, and we can say let's add more voting equipment, which is a cost, but it's not just voting equipment. The basic economics says we have land, labor, and capital. Equipment's capital. The land, we need maybe larger polling places to put that equipment. We may need more workers to staff those larger polling places. Each of these things will add to the cost. If, in my case, I may be able to do it. Fort Bend County is financially blessed, but not every county in the state is thus so. We also know that voter fatigue is genuine. people will start voting and the fall off is real all the way down the ballot. That's certainly the case in Illinois, which the Republican Party, the last time they controlled the legislature, did away with straight party voting, thinking that was going to help them. And they hadn't, until just recently, they couldn't win anything after they did that, and that was 24 years ago. So, again, that's fact. That's reality. But anyway, any questions you have regarding the amount of time, the amount of expense, the amount of problems that eliminating straight party voting would cause for us in Texas in terms of the voting process, I would be glad to address that just some of the other gentlemen haven't already done so.
Okay. Members, any questions? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right, last call. Is there anyone else wishing to testify for, against, or on House Bill 1288? All right, hearing none, then the chair recognizes Representative Simmons to close.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair and members, for listening. It was a good discussion. That's really my goal of this bill, other than to have it pass out unanimously, which sounds like it's what it'll be, to be discussed. And I'll just be honest with you, and this is serious. I was pretty embarrassed by some of the testimony up here. I was embarrassed by the last gentleman that wants to equate what's important in voting to whether it costs more money or takes the lines a little bit longer. What do you think the ladies with the purple thumb in Afghanistan and Iraq were thinking? Do you think they would think we're silly today about whether or not we're willing to vote down the ballot or not, or whether or not we're concerned about making things easier, or whether or not we don't want candidates to have to actually campaign? Is that where we've come to? I'm embarrassed that that's where we've come to. Now, this may or may not be ready for Texas yet. I understand that, and reasonable conservatives can disagree on this issue. But the excuses that were put up here today, members and Madam Chair, that's it. They were just simple excuses. If you'll take the time, when you have some time, to read the articles that were sent to you, I think you'll find them interesting. And again, there is great opportunity for debate on this issue, and it's totally fine to debate it. But it shouldn't be about whether or not it takes another 10 minutes, whether or not it takes a few more voting machines, whether or not people get ballot fatigue. If they get ballot fatigue, then we don't want you to vote. I want you to be an educated voter, not just an easy voter. With that, I close. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, House Bill 1288 will be left pending at this time. Okay, so I'm kind of going to see who came in here next. So the chair lays out House Bill 484 for consideration and recognizes Representative Capriglione to explain the bill.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair, members. Thank you for the opportunity to address the committee. This bill, just simply, I call it the Register to Run bill. In other words, what I'm asking is that you be registered to vote before you run for office. So I'm here to speak to you about HB 484, which would require an individual to be a registered voter before running for public office. Specifically, the bill says that all candidates running for public office in Texas be a registered voter in the territory from which the office is elected. For many other states like Arkansas, California, Louisiana, and Oklahoma, being a registered voter at the time of filing for office is already a requirement. According to the Texas Secretary of State's list of the 32 public offices sought in Texas in 2014, only 2 of those offices require candidates to be registered voters, and that's for the Railroad Commissioner and for the State Board of Education. And this bill would in no way trump any rules already in place in the Constitution. House Bill 484 is a common sense bill that would make sure that those running for public office are registered to vote for the office.
Let's back up. Let's back up. Do you have a committee substitute?
Do I have a committee substitute?
Yes. It shows that you have a committee substitute.
I do
I'm
not.
sorry, I'm looking at the wrong bill.
Okay,
Never
good.
mind. Go ahead.
'Cause this is a simple bill and it does not
Yes.
require any sort of
That's right.
substitute of any kind.
All right, chair's mistake. Never mind.
Okay. I'll just keep going. So basically, this just means in order to run for office, you have to be registered to vote, and in order to be qualified for that office, you have to be a registered voter. It just happened in my district not too long ago, where someone ran for office, was not a for that office. If he had one, would not have been qualified for that office. So, in a sense, is it. I hope you'll carefully consider the merits of this bill, and I reserve the right to those. Answer any questions if there are any.
Okay, members, are there any questions?
All right.
Representative Fallon?
Comment. I've been talking to Representative Capriglione about this bill, and I think it is commonsensical. I think it is straightforward, and thanks for bringing it up.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. The chair calls Bill Fairbrother, Williamson County Republican Party, for the bill.
Bill Fairbrother, Texas Republican County Chairman's Association, House Bill 484. We are for the bill. Everyone I asked already assumed that that was the law, and they were surprised it wasn't, so we think it's common sense. We support it. Thank y'all.
Okay. And we also have Keith Ingram with the Secretary of State's office on the bill, members, if you have any questions. Okay. Chair calls Willie O'Brien, Mountain View College Student Government, for the bill. It's Willie O'Brien here. And apparently he's not here and does not wish to testify, but he is for House Bill 484.
These are the ones that
All right.
These are the ones that are not.
Okay, we don't have anybody else that's wanting to testify. Okay. All right, so we have Colleen Vera for representing herself for the bill, Karen Hobson representing herself for the bill. They do not wish to testify. Carol Kitson representing herself, she's for the bill, does not wish to testify. John Hobson representing himself, he is for the bill, does not wish to testify. All this is 1288. Cheryl Johnson representing herself and Galveston County Tax Office for 1288, does not wish to testify. Glenn Maxey, Texas Democrat Party, for the bill, 1288, does not wish to testify. Cheryl Swift, Galveston County Tax Office, for 1288, does not wish to, is for the bill, does not wish to testify. Rachel Kreider, Galveston County Tax Office, is for 1288, does not wish to testify. Ashley Fisher, with the Secretary of State, is here on the bill, does not wish to testify. Well, it's for y'all to decide if you want to talk to her. Beth Kubriel, the Republican Party of Texas, representing the Republican Party of Texas, on 484, does not wish to testify. Kat Swift, representing herself and the Green Party of Texas, for 484, and does not wish to testify. And Adam Greeley, representing himself, for 484, and does not wish to testify. Again, is there anyone else wishing to testify for, against, or on House Bill 484? Not to be confused with another bill. My mistake. Okay, then the chair recognizes Representative Cabriglione. How am I supposed to say that?
Gio.
Gio.
Awesome.
I like that,
All
yes.
right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
To
members.
close.
Appreciate the chance to have been able to lay out this bill. As you can tell just by the talking points, right now what we have is you can run for office and hold office if you're not registered to vote. Didn't make sense to me, so hope to be able to change that. I appreciate this opportunity. So thank you very much.
Okay. And House Bill 484 will be left pending at this time. Okay. We got to talk to Morris. Go talk to Morris. Go talk to Morris. Okay. All right. Okay, chair lays out House Bill, do you want to lay them? Okay. Chair lays out, we're going to lay out two bills that are very similar, House Bill 621 and House Bill 622 by Representative Chairman Lozano for consideration. And recognizes Chairman Lozano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. just a few minutes ago, we have some folks from B County here and to testify for our bills, and they just got a text that our county judge passed away after a long battle with cancer. And thank you for bringing up the bills so that they could get back. House bills, and so I don't have a committee substitute at all, but I'll begin. House Bill 621 is a bill to streamline the process of voting by giving greater authority to the county voter registrars to terminate volunteer voter registrars and to verify unlisted voters. Excuse me. That's House Bill 622. And so this one would allow them to terminate volunteer voter registrars.
Okay, why don't we do this? Why don't we back up? Would that be easier if we did it one at a time?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, we'll do that. I was just trying to help your witnesses. All right, let's back up. Chair lays out House Bill 621 for consideration and recognizes Chairman Lozano to explain the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. House Bill 621, this alleviates a constituent-driven issue which they have seen in B County as well as other counties. According to information provided by constituents, the inability to terminate a volunteer voter registrar has allowed a poor work ethic and a lack of professionalism to exist. The problem that exists now with the current statute is the only way that a volunteer voter registrar can be terminated is through a quotation as it in the statute says conviction for an offense for failure to deliver a registration application. And so only through a criminal conviction can a voter registrar remove them from their position. And so this bill, House Bill 621, gives a voter registrar the ability to terminate voter registrars who misrepresent their position. Hopefully this bill would internalize workplace issues and foster an environment better suited to register voters. So basically at times they politicize this position and they create hostility in the workplace, and like most employers or county officials, you have a code of conduct. However, their hands are tied. The only way to check this problem is through a conviction, a criminal conviction of failure to deliver a voter registration application. This bill would hopefully solve that problem, and so we have a witness from B County to testify on this bill and describe it in more detail, since it's a very specific issue.
Right. Members, are there any questions? Okay. We don't have the B County person. And okay, your witness hasn't signed in yet. So okay. I will call another witness.
Yes, ma'am.
And then you can go take care of theirs. So yes, you reserve the right to close.
Yes, I do. Yes, I reserve the right.
So while you're fixing that, then the chair calls Jacqueline Callanan, and tell me how to say that again, please. The Bexar County elections for the bill.
Madam Chair and Committee, thank you. Jackie Callanan, Bexar County Elections Administrator, here in support of House Bill 621. As you just heard, we have no mechanism to remove any deputy voter registrars. And I'd like to just share a story with you. We have a number of colleges in Bexar County, as they do, here in Travis. And every semester, the government teachers think it's a wonderful idea to get the students involved. And so they offer extra credit if they become deputy voter registrars, and they turn in 50 cards. That's good for 5 points. However, when the students bring the cards in, we sit in our office and make a bet how many times we'll have Troy Aikman sign up, how many times we'll have Tim Duncan's name on a card. It becomes that because the professor does not go through the cards, the deputy voter registrar has the ability to bring them down. So we really are in support of this because, again, our hands are tied because we can't do anything about this. So I'd ask your consideration of it.
Okay, members, any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so who do we have next? Do we have? Where's this witness? She hadn't signed up yet. Okay, so Chair calls Willie O'Brien, Mountain View College student government, and he is not here, so I'm assuming he's for the bill but does not wish to testify. Okay. Chair calls Bill Fairbrother against House Bill 621.
Yes, once again, Bill Fairbrother, Texas Republican County Chairman's Association. We're opposed to the bill as written, but we love the concept. We worry that an overly partisan registrar could use the current vagueness in the language to disqualify a large number of people who they just happen to disagree with.
And you're opposing?
We're opposing the bill as written.
House Bill?
621.
Okay.
Yes, sorry. We worry that an overly partisan registrar could use the current vagueness to disqualify a large number of deputy registrars that they just happen to disagree with politically. Although we concede from the prior example, there needs to be some power, but the bill needs to get rid of some of the vagueness, and we hope to be able to come back and support a substitute in the future. Thank you.
Okay. Members, any questions? Okay. Chair calls Glenn Maxey, Texas Democrat Party, against the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Glenn Max with the Texas Democratic Party, registered against House Bill 621. We too have the same opinion as the Republican Party on this bill. It's too vague. Right now, the current law does allow a registrar to fire a registrar if they don't review a registration application for completeness. That takes care of most of what happens on the card. They have that power. There is nothing in the law today that allows somebody to be withdrawn if they have not issued a receipt or turned in the cards late. So that is something that should probably be fixed, and we would support that. The vagueness of the sentence here, of any reason they dream up, causes us some heartburn. With that, I'll close.
Okay. Members, any questions? Okay. Thanks a lot. All right. So we do have Ashley Fisher with the Secretary of State on the bill. If y'all have any questions, and let's see, John Oldham, the Texas Association of Elections, for the bill.
Thank you. John Oldham, President, Texas Association of Election Administrators, speaking in favor of 622. Although
No, we're only doing 621 right now.
I'm sorry, 621.
So say that again.
Forgive me. Speaking in favor of 621. Although I don't disagree with what the two-party representatives just said, and this may not be the best bill in the world, but it is better than what we have. Think of it like this. These deputy registrars, even though they're volunteers, they're not employees. They represent me as a registrar. And think of it as in your own position, if you were in business, if you're campaigning. How do you like somebody working for you that you have absolutely no control over, who can do pretty much what they want to with impunity? Now, I'm fortunate. We've only had a few cases like that, and we've been able to deal with them. But the fact of the matter is, you're not going to find a prosecuting attorney who's going to spend the time prosecuting somebody to get a conviction for failing to turn in a registration form. It would probably be nearly impossible to convict anyway. But we do feel it would give a little clout over these folks who sign up for the wrong reasons, who don't do their job, who forget to turn things in, so on and so forth, so without having to go through a judicial proceeding. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions, members? Okay, thank you very much. All right, Chair calls Linda Bridge, Tax Assessor Collector Association, in favor of the bill.
Madam Chair, members, my name is Linda Bridge. I'm Tax Assessor Collector for B County. I'm also the Board of Director for the Tax Assessor Collectors Association. and our association has this bill on our platform. We represent 254 counties, and they support this bill. The reason
And you're speaking in favor
of House
Bill
Bill 621.
Okay.
Thank you. The reason that I brought this forward to my legislature is because of a situation that happened in my county. The bill, the election code says that we can terminate if a deputy voter registrar does not turn their cards in within the 5 allotted days, or if the cards are incomplete or are filled out incomplete. The portion of the bill, and I only got to hear a short portion of those against that said that we dream up anything to terminate, and that's not what the language says. In the language of this bill, it says, or engaged in any other activity that the registrar considers a violation of the responsibilities of a volunteer deputy registrar under this chapter. So this chapter is our guideline as to what we can and cannot do in termination for deputy voter registrars. We feel that this will help us with those people that represent us on the streets when they are out there registering people, that we have, and it's not control over what they're doing, but that we are holding them accountable for what they are representing through the election code. And that's why we brought this bill forward.
Okay, members, any questions? Okay, thank you very much. All right, Chair calls Joseph Zenobia against, speaking for himself, against House Bill 621.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Zenobia Joseph, testifying against House Bill 621. I'm a volunteer deputy registrar in Travis County and have been since 2012. My opposition is actually the same language that the previous speaker mentioned, where it specifies any other activity. It just seems overly broad to me. And when the author laid out the bill, he specified misrepresentation of their position, workplace hostility, and some code of conduct. So if that is in fact what triggered this particular bill, then I think he should specify that language. As it relates to being a volunteer deputy registrar in general, I would say to you that they can in fact terminate our position if we fail to bring the cards back within the 5 days. I'll tell you specifically in Travis County, one of the things that they do is review the card while you turn it in. And one example specifically was that I registered a homeless lady, and it wasn't that I failed to review the card. It's just human nature. I didn't see the error where she put her post office box in the residential area. And even though it was within the 5-day time period, Travis County didn't allow me to take the card back to the lady to have her corrected. Instead, they said they would just send her the rejection letter in the mail. I cured the problem by going back to the alley where I knew she was and had her fill out another card. So I would say to the author that maybe he needs to balance the competing interests and recognize that there are not just bad actors out there, but that there are volunteer deputy registrars who actually are trying to do the best that they can. And so perhaps if it's within the 5-day window and we do encounter an error when we turn the cards in, we should be permitted to go back and cure that if we know who the voter is. And if you have any questions, I'll gladly answer them at this time.
Okay, members, any questions? Okay, thank you. Sorry I got your name backwards.
That's okay.
They gave it to me wrong.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. We have someone who's registered twice, Linda Bridge, the Tax Assessor Collector Association. Somehow you got registered twice, so I'm reading your name again to be sure there's not another Linda Bridge out there. Okay. Do we have anyone else? Okay. Is there anyone else? Is there anyone else here wishing to testify for, against, or on House Bill 621? I mentioned Ashley. Okay. So, with that, Chair recognizes Chairman Lozano to close.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, just to be specific, the language in the bill specifically says, or engaged in any other activity that the registrar considers a violation of the responsibilities of a deputy registrar under this chapter, or engaged in any other activity, and it refers to the responsibilities under that chapter of the election code. And so that those are already defined. However, I would be more than happy to be specific on that language, maybe specifically referring to the statutes in the election code that are defined, just not to be repetitive. I obviously see what some of the witnesses have said about just looking at the phrase "in any other activity," engage in any other activity. I know that that in itself looks extremely broad, but you've got to continue on and see the phrase under this chapter. The election code is clear. It's very specific in there. However, I do want to make sure that there is no wiggle room. I don't want someone dismissed for personal just because they don't like that person. The election environment needs to be conducive to people wanting to go vote. And so I don't want to create any problems, so I definitely want to work on a committee substitute.
Has some folks visited with you on this? Have the folks that have testified against it, have they come and talked
No,
to you?
ma'am, not yet, but I look
So
forward.
I would suggest that they would do that.
Absolutely, yes, and I look forward to it.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, members.
All right. Well, with that, House Bill 621 will be left pending at this time. And the chair lays out House Bill 622 for consideration, and again recognizes Chairman Lozano
Thank
to
you, Madam.
explain your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Basically, this is another bill that's House Bill 622 has brought another one from a constituent concern. The current statutes basically state that a voter who arrives at the voting polls but is not on the list of registered voters and has a valid registration certificate is allowed to vote. In turn, however, the process may lead to a voter's vote to be invalid. One example of this invalidity stems is when a voter, due to relocation, does not vote in their correct district. We all have that problem in our districts where the precinct lines change, the voter confusion creates a problem, and we need to do everything we can to facilitate those. And so this bill seeks to give county voter registrars the ability to allow or disallow an individual to vote if their name does not appear on the list of registered voters. House Bill 622 allows voter registrars to assist in verifying voters' eligibility. Once again, this is a very specific bill with regards to the election code. It basically adds 2 sentences in that relevant code. It allows voters to be accepted for voting if, and this is the line that's added at the voter registrar verifies the voter as a registered voter, and then the code continues as it's currently written. And then another sentence that's inserted allows a voter who is not accepted to vote. This is kind of like a catch-all provision to ensure that people are not disenfranchised. A voter who is not accepted to vote under this section shall be accepted for provisional voting if the voter executes an affidavit stating where they live and the situation that has come about. Those are the only 2 lines added to the election code, and we believe that this will allow voter registrars a little more help from the state, and I believe it could potentially, in my opinion, increase voter turnout and reduce voter apathy.
Okay, members, do you have any questions? Representative Schofield.
Chairman Lozano, this just simply reinstates the prior practice of allowing the election judge to call the elections administrator or the assessor collector and make sure that the person's registered, right? I mean, I think up until like last session or the session before, we had that.
That's correct.
And so if somebody's not on the list, you just pick up the phone and call the county and say, is this person supposed to be here? And they say yes, you'll vote them.
They'll be specific on how they do it, but basically, yes.
And if
that's one method.
They don't appear on the list, you let them provisionally vote.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you reserve the right to close?
I do. I reserve the right to close.
Okay. So, Chair calls Bill Fairbrother, Texas Republican County Chair, on the bill.
In the interest of time, I'll just not testify.
You got to come up to the microphone. Now it's your talk.
Bill Fairbrother, Texas Republican County Chairman's Association. We like the idea of the bill. That's why we're registered on at this stage. Thank you.
On House Bill.
House Bill 622.
Okay.
Thank
so
you.
You're on. All right. Any questions since he's up here? No. Thank you. Okay, chair calls. Calls Janice Evans, the County and District Association of Texas, for House Bill 622. Janice. Yes. Okay.
I'm Janice Evans, Elections Director for Missouri County, here representing the county and district clerks, supporting House Bill 622. This bill needed to be, as Schofield just stated, previously we did this. We were quite surprised when we showed up at a conference to the Secretary of State and they told us that a person could come in with a voter identification card and a driver's license and we had to let them vote. And even all of the counties, I mean, they will tell you, they said, we never do that in our county. If they're not on the list, we call voter registration. We were told we couldn't. Mm-hmm. Situations are a person moves to, I'm in Missouri, moves to Harris County. When they moved, they still had that voter registration card from Missouri County. They re-registered in Harris County, moved back to Missouri County, still have a valid card. And the state even had to write a way to report those voters into the system where you had to add them back, report they voted, and then turn around and take them out. So we need this law, and we're here to support it.
Okay, members, any questions? Representative Schofield, don't leave.
Just a quick one. My understanding is that, as you alluded to, the most common application of this is folks who moved during the 30-day period, and that previously you just picked up the phone.
No, we're literally saying a person moved to Harris County.
Right.
Okay, January of last year they got a card, said they're registered in Missouri County. March they moved to Harris County. They voted in the primary in Harris County, registered in Harris County. Now they've moved back into mom and dad's house, show up with their Missouri County registration card.
And they're on the list.
According to the law, we're supposed to let them vote. When we call voter registration, we find out they're registered in Harris County. They couldn't vote, should not be voting.
But you have them vote the provisional ballot.
We offer them a provisional ballot. That's correct. But if you can't even make them vote provisional the way the law is now, if they have a card and an ID.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, chair calls Willie O'Brien, Mountain View College, for House Bill 622, who did sign up that he wanted to testify, but he's not here, so we're going to say that he is in favor of House Bill 622, but is not going to testify. Okay. And then we have Glenn Maxey with the Texas Democrat Party against House Bill 622.
Actually, Madam Chair, I'm Glenn Max with the Texas Democratic Party, and it's hard for me to say this, but I made a mistake. We are for this bill.
Okay. Got it.
Can y'all change it? Do I need to do something?
We'll fix it. We can fix it. We'll fix it.
We
So
support the
you're
bill.
in favor of House Bill 622?
Only mistake I'll make this session.
Wait. Representative
We're
Foreman.
for House Bill 622.
Okay. Just want to make sure. Okay, so we have John Oldham, the Texas Association of Elections Administrators, in favor of House Bill 622.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. John Oldham, President, Texas Association of Election Administrators, speaking on behalf of 622. Just very briefly, this is a very, mundane bill, but if the legislature passed no other election bill, This would make our association happy. This probably, as Janice alluded, created a firestorm in Austin last summer when we heard the SOS's interpretation, and I'm not saying they're wrong, but it's a loophole in the law that needs to be corrected for a variety of reasons, but it would make us happy.
I do have a question
Yes,
on
ma'am.
this. So I used to work the elections, and there were so many times we would call down there and we couldn't get through. How do y'all handle that?
Well,
I thought the idea was trying to take some of the load off of you guys.
Right. Well, that happens. We happen to have electronic poll books, and we have instant messaging on there. If somebody looks at it again, that may take 5 minutes. But this bill does give the option, if they can't reach us, then of allowing them to vote provisionally.
Right.
And then if it determines that that person is in fact registered in Oklahoma or registered in El Paso, we won't count the provisional ballot. But under the law now, that ballot's in the box.
They can't call you, though.
Right, but they could, if they can't get us, if they can't call us, under the law now, they can't, an interpretation.
No, they can't now. My question is that are the counties going to say, gee, you're going to cost us a lot of money at the county level because we're now going to have to put in more phone lines? I'm just asking.
No, our principal job is to make sure that everybody who is entitled to vote gets to vote.
Correct.
And that nobody who's not entitled to vote gets a ballot, whether it's, whether that is making sure we don't have long lines, or whether it's making sure that only those persons who are entitled to vote's ballot is commingled in the ballot box with everybody else's.
But you can handle it.
We can handle that very easily.
Okay.
We handled it for years.
I know. Well, no, I couldn't get in for years. So,
but again, if we can't.
So you're going to do better than you did in the past.
Well, if you can't reach us, if the phone's busy, and that happens sometimes, we know that. We had a problem a few years ago in our county. We planned. I thought I had everything covered. I had 13 temps working at phones, and we had IT install
and they had
the
their
phones.
Computers right there.
We had them right there.
Don't they
but
have
you
them
know
at
what?
the election site?
IT forgot to give us the phone lines. So they were sitting there and nobody could call.
And I thought everybody had it all under
these
control.
things happen. But that's not to say that it's the end of the world, because they can issue a provisional ballot under this, and that would be their next option.
So they don't have, again, technology has moved very fast, and so at the polling places, they don't have computer terminals hooked into the registration?
We do.
Okay.
But the thing is, even we know, and that computer terminal, that electronic poll book, and every county doesn't have it. We've had it for a number of years. We are online on Election Day and have been for a number of years. But so, our database, that if they call us, in reality,
they're seeing the same thing that you're seeing.
Right.
They're
seeing the same thing, unless it happens to be a very last-minute registration card. For example, I don't want to pick on one of my neighbors, but the day before the presidential election in what was that, 2008, we got about 300 cards from Harris County that had gone to SOS and then went to Harris County. They were all valid. We had to put them in. That was a problem, but today we can actually force those out to the polling place as soon as we entered them. So that's not a huge problem, but we've got
I'm
the
the
technology
old-fashioned. I
to
like
do
to
that.
pick up the phone call.
And that's great. That's wonderful. But
Okay, great.
you should have the option to do that. It's frustrating as a poll worker, and I worked my first election in 1973 in Jackson County, Illinois, as a poll worker. And if you're sitting there and somebody's not registered, but you still got to give them a ballot, that's pretty frustrating.
Okay. Are there any other questions? All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Chair calls Jacqueline Callan from Bexar County Elections Administrator. She's a Bexar County Elections Administrator in favor of House Bill 622.
Jackie Callan, Bexar County Elections Administrator, please, very much in favor of 622. And Chairman, we hear your pain, we understand your pain, and most of the elections administrators, we now are equipping our election officials with, as you heard John say, laptops. They're getting cell phones. The technology is just moving forward, and we're embracing it, and we need to use it so that we don't have 1,000 provisional ballots, so we can cut that back. Because as you had said, and you mentioned into the expense of it, it's a scale, it's a balance scale. You know, do we fix it here, or do we have an early ballot board that has to work on the provisional ballots?
Very good
And so
point.
it is a trade-off,
Okay.
and I'd like you to think of that, okay?
Good point. Thank you. Any other questions, members? Okay. And let's see, we have Ed Johnson with the Harris County Clerk's Office in favor of House Bill 622. Hope you're not going to read all. Hope you're not going to read all that.
That's right. Ed Johnson, Harris County Clerk. We are for HB 622. This is a great bill. It fixes a big problem right now of not being able to call the voter register to verify if someone is registered to vote, if they show up with a valid voter certificate. In Harris County, last election, last November, we had over 280 voters that were added to the omissions list that were falling into this category, had valid voter registration cards, but were not registered to vote, and they voted on election day at the polling locations. So because the judge could not call the voter registrar to validate if they were registered or not. This bill or bill closes a big hole in that process. There is one little slight concern we have, and it answers your question of what happens if we can't get a hold of the voter registrar on election day, and also with our election workers. This is a supply kit from Harris County of the forms the election judge gets. Just the forms, not the poll books or anything else. It is stuffed to the brim, as y'all can see. It weighs 32 pounds in here of all the different forms they get. And what we're fearful of is that this is going to maybe add another form to this box that we translate into 4 different languages, and the judge will never be able to find. So we're hoping maybe a slight modification that would fix your problem if you don't get a hold of the person on election day and they are a registered voter, is you would vote them provisionally. If they're not on the list of registered voters, what you want to do is capture their information. This is a provisional ballot for Harris County here. You want to capture their voter information, and get you off the top page so you can see. You want to capture the voter information so you can get them registered in the correct location that they're voting at, and then we could add a checkbox to this little form saying if they are registered and on the list that says registered on the list, count this provisional ballot. And it would be real simple, and we eliminate a form in 4 languages going into this box. And our judges would be real happy that we're making the box lighter instead of heavier. We have run out of room of stuffing paper in this box. So, you know, my hope is maybe if you'd ask the Secretary of State if it's possible to add it to this form instead of creating a new form, or see if the author would be able to do something like that.
Why don't you have that discussion with the author?
I have had that discussion with the author, and I think he's maybe favorable for it.
Okay, great. Members, any questions? And I'm glad I don't have to vote in Harris County right now.
If any of y'all want to look at how many forms you're giving these people, here it is.
Provisionally, of course. Thank you. All right, Chair calls Rovin Garrett, the Tax Assessor Collectors Association of Texas, in favor of House Bill 622, and you registered twice, so let me just call your name again twice. Is
Yes,
there
ma'am.
another Rovin Garrett?
Rovin Garrett.
Rovin.
There we go.
Rovin.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Thank you for correcting me.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm Rovin Garrett. I'm the Brazoria County Tax Assessor Collector and also past president of the Tax Assessor Collectors Association, which represents the 254 elected county tax in the state. And this bill is one of our platform bills. Came to you to the legislature through Representative Lozano from our association. And we just want to thank you for your consideration and passage. Everybody's already said really all the good things that need to be done with it, and we'll be glad to answer any questions if needed. But we are in great support since it came from us to begin with.
All right. Any questions? Thank you very much. And we have Ashley Fisher with the Secretary of State's office on the bill, in case members have any questions. So, all right. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify for, against, or on House Bill 622? And seeing none, and the chair recognizes Chairman Lozano to close.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I close. Thank you.
All right, so House Bill 622 will be left pending at this time. Okey-doke. So now we will hear, and thank you, Representative Miles, for consideration. And Chair lays out House Bill 258 for consideration and recognizes Representative Miles to explain the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair Laudenberg. Vice Chair Goldman, I have a and members, I have a very, very simple bill for you that was passed out of elections last session that died in State Senate Affairs on last session. It's a very, very simple bill, easy as pie. Under Election Code 13.073, currently the register is required to provide the reason for the rejection of an application as follows. If the applicant is not present, the rejection must be sent in writing within 2 days, or if the applicant is present and the rejection must be given orally immediately. But Madam Chair, the current law does not establish how detailed or specific the reason for the rejection is given to the application must be. This has resulted in many applicants being provided non-specific information by some voter registrars, which made it difficult for applicants to correctly reapply for a new voter's registration. Madam Chair, in your county alone, Collin County, there was 119 voters that were rejected for voting.
But they were given provisional ballots.
In some cases they were, yes ma'am. In some cases they were not. But I think if it would have been made simple for where the error was, they could have gone back and reapplied, made it very quickly and reapplied. Vice Chair Goldman, in your county, there were 3,200 total voter registrations that were rejected. This bill, HB 258, would require the voter registrar to specifically identify what part of the application resulted in the rejection when a voter registration application is rejected. HB 258 will require that the applicant be told in a specific section was incomplete, if it was improperly filled out, or contained information showing the applicant as ineligible to vote. We should provide voters in the state of Texas with a specific section that was cause of the rejection so that voters are able to correct the problem without receiving another rejection for the same problem. Secretary of State Keith Ingram, Carlos Casco, and the Secretary of State's office has said to me, they assure me that it will be very easy to implement. All they would have to do is update the forms. Okay? There's no significant implication to the state or local government because the county registers already are required either by email or within written and a handout to reject and tell the applicant of the problems. Again, last session, this bill came out of election unanimously. On the House floor, it passed with bipartisan support, and we simply ran out of time and was left pending in Senate and State Affairs. I think you should also know that VoteTech, which is one of the companies that administer and assist several counties in the state of Texas with the voting mechanism and voting information, they have also said that this will cause no additional problems for them. The data is completely focused on providing electronic needs. Harris County, Baxter County, Victoria County, and Denton County already use VoteTech. Okay? Madam Chair, with this very, very, very simple, simplistic bill that again was passed out of elections last session, passed by the House unanimously, I give it to you. And I'll leave it open for questions and reserve the right to close, Madam Chair.
Okay. Do y'all have any questions? Rep. Schofield.
Mr. Miles, is the voter registration application that complex that you can't figure out that you got your address wrong or your name wrong? I mean, it doesn't seem to me. I mean, I worry that we start putting very specific requirements in here and you're just creating gotchas for lawsuits.
Well, I'm not putting requirements for the voter application. I'm just putting requirements in that we tell them what section was filled out improperly. We're not asking for any requirements on the application itself.
Exactly. I mean,
and for some people, Representative Sheffield, it could be a little difficult for. in your prestigious community, I think it's Katy, am I right? I'm sure everybody in Katy can get it, but some people maybe in my community, Representative Reynolds' community, some people may have a little challenge in understanding voter applications.
I'm sure if your voters are smart enough to send you, they're smart enough to figure out how to register to vote.
That's an assumption. You're making an assumption there, man. You're making an assumption. We don't want to assume anything when it comes to our great state.
Okay, so when a person fills out their registration card and they send it in
Yes, ma'am.
to the county registrar's office,
Yes, ma'am.
and so they send it back saying that, and that person has gone to vote and they weren't allowed to vote because their registration card wasn't filled out properly.
They could have left something off. It
And then
wasn't
they
filled out
get
properly, or they may have been ineligible completely.
Yeah, and they get a letter.
They get a letter.
And so
All
what
the letter
is-
says is that your voter application card was rejected.
Okay, it just says it was
That's
rejected.
all it says. Doesn't say why.
Okay, now, if someone, because I know someone specifically this happened to, and I'm sorry to give an anecdotal story, but this actually happened to a friend of mine. She thought she'd registered. She turned out she was registered in the wrong place. But anyway, she went to vote. They said, you're not on the list. We'll give you a provisional ballot. And meanwhile, we will have you fill out a voter registration card while she was there. You know, she couldn't vote, but she filled out the card and then, mailed it in. So she did get her letter, but then she also got her new voter card.
She filled out another one?
No, she really wasn't registered at the other one. It was the wrong address, ex-husband, the whole bit. So anyway, she would not have been allowed to vote. And I guess if she went back to the other county, but,
And this bill
Not
would have
gonna
provided her with a reason why the other one was rejected.
But she got, okay, so I'm just asking you, so she got her registration card. I mean, they were all pretty good about, making sure if somebody wasn't on the list, they gave them the card, please fill this out, send it in. And is there any kind of penalty? I mean, I don't see it, but is there any implication in this? Because I think that's what Representative Schofield
Well, there
was
were
saying.
people that testified, and I hate to go against my own bill, but I want to be transparent with you. There were people who testified on last session that they would cause some burden on local counties. That was cleared up, that it would not cause any burdens on local counties, because you got to understand, everyone is required to send notification as we speak right now, but everyone is not required to send the state of Texas's the state secretary's notification. This leads to a vague and interpretation on the letter. If everybody was to send the one that I just handed out to you, if everybody stayed in line with the state of Texas, state of Secretary of State of Texas, then we'd have no problems, because they're required to do it anyway. It's just a real simple cleanup bill. That's all it is. That's all it is, people.
Representative Fallon.
Representative Miles, is there any other reason that an application can be rejected? Or are these literally all of them? Just my concern would be, what if it's other?
A valid, it could be that the person is very ineligible or not able to, they're not supposed to be voting in the first place. It could be that they filled it out wrong. It could be filled that they're not even in that county, like in the case of her friend.
Right.
So they would have to put that,
What I'm saying, though, is it, I could think
But
of...
this bill would require them, if they use this form that I showed you, if you refer to that particular form.
So are these all the reasons that you can be
These are all-
rejected?
these are
There's
all
not
the
another
by the state-
reason?
This is by our great state of Texas. Okay.
I see
And
what you're saying.
we're not wrong in this state, are we?
We're down.
We're not wrong in this state. This letter will, if they use this particular form, you'll
Okay.
find out
I
exactly
understand
why.
what you're saying now. Okay, thank you.
Okay, what would be an example of contained information identifying the applicant as ineligible to vote? That would have fallen with my friend. So they had to specify you were registered in a different county?
That's one of the issues on here, yes, ma'am.
And what if they didn't put that down there?
No driver's license or personal identification number given for the last 4 digits Social Security number, no check for the driver's license.
Okay.
It has to all match up. And again, if we require every county to use this form, we're clean as a whistle. And that's all my bill's asking. It's a cleanup bill for the great state of
Any other
Texas.
questions?
That's all it is.
Representative Reynolds.
Representative Miles, so really, your intent is to not have any kind of voter confusion. When they get a rejection letter, they can have specificity as to why their application was rejected, and then allow them an opportunity to fix it. So they won't have to guess if there's any kind of uncertainty. It's very clear and specific.
That's correct, Representative Prentice. That's absolutely correct.
Okay, any other questions?
I reserve the right.
Right to close, okay. Chair calls Glenn Maxey with the Texas Democrat Party in favor of House Bill 258.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Glenn Max with Texas Democratic Party in favor of House Bill 258. Simply here, lots of people register to vote. They make a mistake on the application. They must be rejected. The Travis County voter registrar told me before this meeting that over 75% of the applications in Travis County that are rejected is for people who simply didn't fill out a certain box on the form. If the person gets a rejection letter and it says it's rejected and here's a new form, fill it out, but they're not told what they did wrong, they'll fill it out the same way they did the first time, and they get rejected a second time. So simplicity of telling people exactly what you did wrong so they can correct it helps. Clearly, problems of incomplete addresses, putting an apartment address, a street address without the apartment number can get you a rejection. And there are a lot of people who fail to sign them or date them, or people do their birth dates and give the year as 2015 on their birth date because that's just a common error. So telling people exactly what they did wrong so they don't make the mistake again would clean this up. And my last point on this, almost all of the errors that happen on a voter registration card like this could be solved if we had online voter registration. Thank you very much.
We are talking about House Bill 258. All right, audience.
We're not testifying on that bill, so I won't go into the reasons why. Thank you very much.
Okay, members, any questions? All right. Chair calls Alan Vera, Harris County Republican Party ballot security against House Bill 258.
My name is Alan Vera, and even though I stole my wife's story, I'm still the chairman of the Ballot Security Committee for Harris County Republican Party. I'm here to speak against 258 based on real experience. The language and the intent of this bill, I think, is excellent. Okay, I think it's excellent. And it would be workable if voter registrations came in nice and steady like clockwork throughout the year. Divide 80,000 new voter registrations and divide it by the number of days, that'd be great. It could be dealt with. That's not the real world. The real world is that as the deadline for voter registration approaches, the volume increases steadily, increases amazingly, so that there are no fewer than 40% of all new voter registrations come in the last week, in the very last week. Now, some voters make mistakes, and we've heard today examples of good-intentioned voters who make mistakes. But there are also organizations out there who sign up as deputy voter registrars who collect thousands of voter registrations and purposely send them in the last day to give the county voter registrars a good bit of work to do. Okay? In larger counties, okay, it creates a perfect storm for litigation. In larger counties like Harris, it'd be a perfect storm for litigation. You, the voter registrar, who got 40,000 voter registrations the last day, did not reply in time for the voter to make the corrections, and now we're suing you on behalf of whatever group. Okay? It also would generate needless challenges to otherwise properly run elections. You're setting up a perfect storm for challenges and litigation which have nothing to do with helping the voters to properly fill out a voter registration card. In even the best of cases, the budget required to meet the requirements of this bill with this slew of last-second registrations would be better spent on perhaps better education for voters on how to fill out a voter registration card correctly, or more proactive work by the county registrar in reaching out to other communities and showing them how to do it. So therefore, I ask you to not approve and not progress HB 258, and I'll be happy to answer your questions.
Representative Israel.
Mr. Vera, thank you for your testimony. I'm just curious, what kind of expenses do you think would be incurred in that back and forth exchange between the county and that voter?
It's not a back and forth as much as you would have to have incremental personnel to basically screen each voter registration card. Remember, they're coming in now at a big slug at the end, and I'm mostly concerned about the end. Identify the issue that has been mistakenly entered or omitted and send it back out. You're talking about human capital. It's just more people. It's more people to identify. The machine won't do it, not right now, not in this technology. The machine won't do it. So it's extra people in the voter registrar's office to identify for this person. Gee, you didn't spell your name in your signature the way you wrote it in your printed version.
So when we have a lot of paper applications come in at the last minute on that last day, there's a lot of personnel that's required to clarify these issues, and that's the expense that you're talking about.
You're talking about an extra significant step. Right now, they simply recognize this is not filled out correctly. Send this letter notifying the voter, I'm sorry it wasn't correctly filled out. Now you want to add, not only was it not filled out correctly, but let me see, not just, here's one mistake you made. Great. They didn't have time to put 7 mistakes the voter made. So now it comes back again with that one mistake corrected, but it's going to be rejected again because they didn't take time to go through all the mistakes.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay. Thank you very much. Oh.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, Chair calls Jacqueline Callan, Bexar County Elections Administrator, in favor of House Bill 258.
Thank you. In the consideration of time, Jackie Callan, Bexar County Elections Administrator, in support. And Representative Israel, you are just so right. When those cards come in and we have to do that back and forth, when we have to do the mailings, when we have to do the remedies to correct the deficiencies, it is an expensive item. It's a huge item in in all counties because it's an economy of scale. You know, smaller counties have smaller ones to deal with. But again, listening as you hear, they do come in. They don't come in perfectly at any way, shape, or form. And Representative Mills is just dead on. If we can get this, correct the deficiencies right there in person, have that ability, and then let us send a multiple deficiency letter instead of one at a time. We are very much in support of this.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Chair calls Willie O'Brien, Mountain View College student, against House Bill 258. And Willie signed up to testify, but he's not here, so he is against House Bill 258 and not wishing to testify. And we again have Keith Ingram with the Secretary of State's office on the bill. Members, if you have any questions for him. Okay. Is there anyone else wishing to testify for, against, or on House Bill 258? And seeing no one else, then the chair calls Representative Miles to
Thank
close.
you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me clarify a couple of things that my good friend Alan Vera from Harris County Republican Party stated. First of all, last session, ladies and gentlemen, we outlawed in this great state vote harvesting. So those big groups that are going out and getting all these votes to come in at the last minute, that's no longer legal in the state of Texas. Okay, we outlawed that last session. Second, we're still required, Brother Vera, to send out a letter explaining to them within that 2 days why their application was rejected. All I'm saying in my bill is to use a standard state-provided form that would do all that we need to do, a simple form that I handed out to you, that every county is required to use this. Because under the law of the state of Texas, Election Code 13.073, you're still required, I don't care if you get 50,000 of them, you still are required by this great state and the laws of this state to notify them that they have been rejected. All HB 258 does is ask you that you use a standard form that is already provided by the state. And all they have to do is check one of these and move on.
They can check
and we
multiple.
stay in compliance. That's all I'm doing, Madam Chair.
They can check multiple ones.
They can check multiple.
Okay.
So it's not a big burden. That could be a big burden if your office is just lazy. But I don't think we want to take a burden. I don't think we want
You don't have to respond to that.
No, I don't think we want to to prevent our citizens of this state from having an opportunity to exercise their right to vote. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. And you close.
And I close, Madam Chair. I'm
All
sorry.
right. Thank you.
And I ask that you move this out as soon as possible.
House Bill.
Total consent, yeah. Right.
You sure about that one? House Bill 258 will be left pending at this time.
Thank y'all. Y'all have a good evening.
Okay. Chair lays out House Bill 487 and for consideration and recognizes Representative Howard to explain her bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members, for the opportunity to lay out House Bill 487. I do have a committee substitute, if that could be laid out, please.
Okay. All right. Thank you for reminding me. I'm just getting ready to turn to it. All right. Then, let's see. Hold on a second. I want to make sure I get the words
Thank
right. Okay. Representative Reynolds offers a substitute to House Bill 487 and now calls on Representative Howard to explain the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I will explain it further in my comments, but basically all the substitute does is change the caption to follow the new House rules that say that there's a criminal offense, and then changes the date when this begins, and I'll explain that as I lay this out here. Y'all have had some really good discussion here today about how we make voting easier, get people to actually choose to vote and participate in the electoral process. What this bill is focused on is more of the ethics end of those of us that are elected to serve. And we know that a lot of the reasons that people give for not participating is because of their lack of confidence in us sometimes. And there's a lot of legislation I know we'll be looking at in terms of ethics. This bill in particular has to do with the so-called revolving door between public service and lobbying, which has received a lot of scrutiny. As a result, laws have been enacted at both the federal level, where they actually have a 2-year so-called cooling off period in Congress, and several states, at least 33 states, that have some kind of requirement of cooling off before former lawmakers can begin work as lobbyists. Texas actually applies a revolving door policy here, but it's only to executive directors and board members of regulatory agencies. There are no restrictions on legislators, and many former legislators, of course, secure work as lobbyists immediately after leaving office. The issue here is that in making that rapid transition, sometimes these individuals are often left with money in their campaign bank accounts. The committee substitute for HB 487 would amend Chapter 253 of the Election Code and Chapter 305 of the Government Code to limit the expenditures of political contributions accepted when a person was a candidate or office holder, but who now is in the private sector and subject to registration as a lobbyist. Exemptions are provided for persons who represent nonprofit organizations, low-income individuals, or persons with disabilities, and who do not receive compensation for their lobbying activities. The bill also defines the period of time in which political contributions and expenditures are prohibited as extending through the second anniversary of the last day of the person's final term in office. And I'll go through that and clarify any I need to here, but the real purpose here is 2 years when you leave office at the end of your term. The substitute differs from the original bill as filed, as I mentioned, to add the required language to the caption stating that the bill creates a criminal penalty of a Class A misdemeanor. Substitute also changes the cutoff date for the contributions that are affected by this law from January 1 to January 15 of 2017. And I believe y'all are getting a handout here which gives you just a visual of the timeline and how this would look. This is actually, and the change of the date is just to really clarify that this is going to apply to members of the current legislative body, the 84th legislative session and beyond. It's not retroactively to apply to previous elected officials from previous legislative sessions. HB 487 will enhance, I believe, the public confidence that donations that were made to candidates and office holders will be used for their intended purpose, drawing a line between the time a person runs for or holds office and any subsequent endeavor involving lobbying activities. I believe we have several witnesses here to speak on the bill, including a resource witness from the Texas Ethics Commission. I'm happy to try to answer any questions, and I reserve the right to close.
Okay. Representative Howard, just curious why you would exempt anyone from the bill, even
Yeah, and that was discussed. This bill actually made it into the House out of committee last session, and it was an amendment to the Sunset Ethics Bill, which was vetoed. There was discussion over time with this legislation, and the idea was that some felt that it was too punitive to those who were strictly working with 501c3 organizations and not getting any compensation, that they should have some opportunity to use some of their contributions to work on behalf of these 501c3 organizations. That was added with that discussion. So we can certainly discuss that more and, look at other options if that's something the committee is interested in doing.
Okay. Representative Schofield.
Thank you. And Representative Howard, we discussed this a little bit
Yes.
earlier. The exemption that we're talking about here would exempt only those people who represent certain entities, which are nonprofits for low-income individuals or individuals with disabilities, and who aren't getting paid.
Correct.
I like the not getting paid part. As you can imagine, folks may have different groups. I may have taxpayer groups that I think are a good pro bono, or schools, or homeschooling. Have you given any thought to, if the purpose of the bill is to make sure that we're not being cynical and hoarding all this money that we're given to go make money for ourselves?
Correct.
Have you given thought to just exempting anyone who does work and does not receive compensation other than the reimbursement for actual expenses? So they could be representing something that's important to them in their home county, or they can be representing their neighbors, or just not necessarily picking exactly the winners that.
Right, and certainly when this bill first was envisioned a couple of sessions back, it didn't have exemptions at all. So this evolved because of the concerns that we've alluded to here, that there are advocacy groups that are truly nonprofits for low-income folks that don't and that are not able to pay a lobbyist, and that this is an opportunity to work for organizations like that and make that contribution. Your point is well made, that you have other pro bono opportunities that you might choose to do, and as I said, I'm open to discussing that. But that was what the intent of this was.
I personally would be a lot more favorably inclined if there were either no exemption, or if the exemption were essentially for anybody who isn't violating the purpose of the bill by getting paid.
Okay, yeah, I'm happy to discuss that, and I appreciate the input.
I appreciate your willingness.
Thank you.
Any other questions, members? Representative Israel?
Representative Howard, did this bill pass last session without any exemptions?
It came out of committee with the same exemptions that we're talking about here.
Same format that we're seeing it today.
Yes.
It passed out the same way.
Yes, that's
last
correct, and that's
session.
what was added to as an amendment to the Ethics Sunset.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Fallon? Yeah, that did not hit the floor, though, last session, did it?
I'm sorry?
Did your bill hit the floor last session?
No, that's why
Yeah, I
it
figured. I don't remember.
it was added as an amendment.
I'm a simple person, so I just want to
Okay.
make sure that I understand this right. So you're saying that a member can become a lobbyist. They can do that. They just
Yes.
can't use the money from their campaign funds.
That's correct.
Okay. See, because I have a bill file that'll go further and say you just can't even be a lobbyist for 2 years.
And that's certainly something that a lot of states have chosen to do. This is, as you kind of alluded to, they're an intermediary step. It is not prohibiting.
This is better than what we got now.
It's better than what we have now, I would agree.
And I would echo Representative Schofield's comments about the exemptions. That's problematic for me, but if we can clean that up, it might be something I'd be favorably disposed to.
Happy
Thank
to
you.
talk about it.
Thank you. And thank you for bringing this up.
Appreciate it.
Other questions, members?
Okay. Reserve the right to close.
Thank you, Representative Howard. We'll now go to our witnesses. We have some guy named Lon Burnham who would like to speak for the bill. Did I say your name correctly, Mr. Burnham?
Yes, Chairman Lobenberg.
Oh, shoot. Mike just left and Representative Phelan just left, so everybody else up here knows me. I have previously been on that side of the dais, but here today, I'm Lon Burnham, and I am here testifying for the bill.
Can you state the name, the exact bill they'd like you to say now?
The exact
new rule
bill
since
number?
you've last been here, yes, which is
Okay.
487, just so you know.
Okay, it is, Donna, 487, and I'm representing Public Citizen. And some of you may view this with a little sense of irony that this is the first bill I've ever testified for since retiring from the legislature, and I'm doing it as a full-time, strictly volunteer. So I want to make it clear that this is, to us, a really good example of the step in the right direction to end a lot of revolving door issues the state of Texas faces. And it may not be the whole banana, Representative Fallon, but it's a good step in the right direction. It may need some tweaking and nuances, Representative Schofield, but it is a step in the right direction, and we need to move very strongly in the direction of closing the revolving door problems that this state faces, and the electorate has become very cynical about why people bother to serve in office. Thank you. I'd be glad to answer any questions if there are any questions.
Any questions, members? There don't seem to be any questions.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Chairman
Public,
Goldman.
Thank you, Public Citizen Burnham. The chair now calls Ian Stuslav with the Texas Ethics Commission. And I apologize if I mispronounce that, but you can correct me. You're speaking on the bill?
Yes, I'm Ian Stuslav. I'm an assistant general counsel with the Texas Ethics Commission, and I'm just here as a resource witness on this bill. 487.
Thank you. Members, any questions? No questions. I think we're good. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Is there anyone else here who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 487? Seeing none, the chair recognizes Representative Howard to close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. It sounds like y'all all get this. I appreciate that very much. From my vantage point, the funds that are contributed to help us get elected are to be used for that purpose. And in fact, we are prohibited from using them for any personal purpose. And it would appear that when you are working in the private sector and using these funds, that is for your personal benefit. And I think this is a good step forward toward correcting that. I'm happy to work with y'all on the issues that you brought up. I really appreciate your feedback and input on that. And unless there's any other questions, I close.
Okay, no other questions.
Thank you.
Hold on a second. Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Yep.
That's good. I'm told I'm not speaking in the mic directly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the chair withdraws the substitute to House Bill 487, and House Bill 487 will be left pending at this time. So now we have a glitch. I want to, help me on this one, recall House Bill 258. Representative Miles, and I'm recalling House Bill 258. Chair lays out House Bill 258, and we have a couple of witnesses who had signed up to testify. I am sorry, we did not see it. We're having some glitches on our computer, so we are going to correct that. And so the best thing, I think, Representative Miles,
Yes, ma'am.
do you have anything you want to say?
No, it's a technical error, people. It's come to Chairman's and I's attention that our state phone system is now down, which may have some interference with the witness registration.
What's your online registration?
Yeah. So it's come to my attention. I have two people, one representing the county clerks, correct, who wants to testify in favor. In favor of...
Okay, hey, we're going to get it. We want to do it officially.
Right, I need the card I gave you.
Oh. That's the only card you gave me. Okay.
Who wish to testify in favor. And then we also had Bill Fairbrother, the Williamson County Republican Party chair, who wanted to testify in favor of the bill. but has since then got disgusted and left the building. So, Madam Chair, I
He's
just
been here
have,
all day. He can't be.
here's his card, and he's specified he wants
Okay.
testify in favor. Thank you, Madam Chair, for helping us clean up this situation.
We're going to fix this. Just give us a second.
I think it's Gene Wu's fault.
Okay. Is there anyone here wishing to testify for, against, or on, right now, House Bill? What is it? Okay, 258. Yes, ma'am. All right, can you come up here, please? Not to that microphone, but we need to get you registered. You're going to do it on the clerk's computer. If there's anyone else, come up here. We're going to get you registered on the clerk's iPad. No, you can't. You can't. You have to come up here and register. Okay, here's what's going on. When witnesses sign up to register for, against, or on a particular bill on the kiosk, on the outside computer, if they point out they do not want to testify, then I just found out that I do not have to read all the names. So it's in the computer system, but if that would make everyone comfortable to read all the names, then I can certainly do that. So I started out doing that. I realized, I'm keeping everyone here. It's not mandatory to do it, so I quit doing it. So that may have been confusing to folks. But if you would like for me to read all the folks that signed up.
But there's no record that I've done anything.
Okay, then you need to, but you weren't on there to begin with. Okay, so then you need to, all right, so let me do this. Okay. All right, I'm going to read this. All right. Dana DeBeauvoir. De Beauvoir. Boy, did I mess that one up. De Beauvoir. That's beautiful. Is for House Bill, and I don't have it written in front of me again. 258. Okay. It's for House Bill 258, but does not wish to testify.
It's county clerks, ma'am.
Okay. Dana de Beauvoir, representing the Legislative Committee of County and District Clerks, is in favor of House Bill 258, but does not wish to testify. Now, is there anyone else who wishes to testify for or against or on House Bill 258? So, is this the list of who does not wish? Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and read, just for clarification, but I will tell you I probably won't do it from here on forward because it's very time-consuming, but your testimony is registered. Colleen Vera, representing herself, is against House Bill 258, but does not wish to testify. Karen Hobson, representing herself, is against House Bill 258, does not wish to testify. Jesse Romero with Common Cause Texas is for House Bill 258, does not wish to testify. William Fairbrother himself and the Texas Republican County Chairmen's Association is for House Bill 258, does not wish to testify. John Hobson, representing himself, is against House Bill 258, does not wish to testify. Erin Anderson, representing herself, true the vote, against House Bill 258, does not wish to testify. Cheryl Johnson, representing herself and Galveston County Tax Office, is against House Bill 258, does not wish to testify. Cheryl Swift, Galveston County Tax Office, is against House Bill 258, does not wish to testify. Chris Franson, representing Self and League of Women Voters of Texas, is for House Bill 258, does not wish to testify. Rachel Kreider, with the Galveston County, representing the Galveston County Tax Office, is against House Bill 258, does not wish to testify. Victor Cornell, with the American Civil Liberties Union of Texas, is for House Bill 258 and does not wish to testify. Ashley Fisher, with the Secretary of State, is on. I've already called your name, Ashley. Sorry about that. Members, if you have any questions, which you didn't. And Brandon Moore, representing himself, is for House Bill 258, does not wish to testify. Yanis Banks, with the Texas NAACP, is for House Bill 258, does not wish to testify. And Kat Swift, representing herself and the Green Party of Texas, is for House Bill 258 and does not wish to testify. Okay. So we have called out all the folks that have signed up, wishing to state whether they're for, against, or on, but did not wish to testify. Now, let me say it again. It is not mandatory because now we have it in the system. As you can tell, it takes up a lot of time. I'd rather give that time to the folks that have come to be able to speak. And out of consideration for, you that are here, taking the time, obviously, we kind of like to get out before midnight. Okay? I will say that selfishly. Okay. Now, having said that, Representative Miles, I'm going to call you to close again.
Madam Chair, I appreciate your time and your efforts. I close.
Okay. And the House Bill 258 will be left pending at this time. Okay. All righty. So now we are going to hear, let's see, Chair lays out House Bill 891 for consideration and recognizes Representative Click to explain your bill.
Madam Chair, committee members, thank you for the opportunity to lay out this bill. Last session I filed this bill. It was House Bill 2372. It passed this committee, but we ran out of time. This bill directs the Secretary of State's office to enter into an interstate cross-check program. These programs compare voter rolls across states to find duplicate entries. Most states have no consistent method of removing people off of voter rolls when they move. Considering the mobility of the current population, having the same person listed on multiple voter rolls in different counties or even different states is quite common. As an example, one of my staffers learned that he was still on the voter rolls for Colorado last summer despite moving here in 2009. Cross-check provides a means to check those lists and clear out incorrect entries and mistakes. As of last year, 22 other states are currently participating in the cross-check program. Cross-check has been recommended by the National Council of State Legislators, as well as the 2014 Presidential Commission on Elections Administration as a best practices that states should consider adopting. And here's the good news. This can be done at no cost to Texas. This committee had its own hearing during the interim on the interstate cross-check on April 10th, 2004. Other states have managed the system in a secure manner that protects personal information. This bill, I repeat, does not make any changes to how the Secretary of State's office handles potential matches and removes them from the rolls. One of the things in the federal statute for voter registration is that they perform list maintenance. Well, we need to provide them the tools to do so. And this voter cross-check program is one such tool, and it's at no cost, as I mentioned, to the state. And with that, I am happy to answer any questions you might have. Okay.
Members, any questions? Representative Israel.
Hi, Representative Click, was this the same language that you introduced last session?
It absolutely is.
Thank you.
It's identical. Thank you.
Okay. And you reserve the right to close?
I do. I reserve the right to close.
Okay. So, Chair calls Alan Vera with the Harris County Republican Party ballot security in favor of House Bill 891.
Alan Vera, Harris County Republican Party Ballot Security Committee, testifying for HB 891. The main point I want to make is that the bill is necessary. In doing a volunteer election integrity work across Texas, Wisconsin, and Virginia, I had the misfortune to be able to observe the problems caused when this kind of cross-state registration is not active. In Wisconsin and Texas and in Virginia, you literally had voters crossing state lines to vote in two states. And if you think the Rio Grande looks bad if you're crossing, you ought to see the Virginia-Maryland border on Election Day. The other problem you have is students from out of state voting both in the state where their college is located and voting absentee back home where they're still registered at mom and dad's house. It's a serious problem. You're not going to solve these problems with warnings about why you shouldn't do this. And you're not going to solve it by prosecuting those people who violate it if you catch them, because at least as far as Texas is concerned, everybody knows Texas district attorneys won't chase misdemeanors. So it's not going to happen. The solution proposed in HB 891 allows Texas to prevent the kinds of problems we've seen and to perhaps head them off before they influence an election unfairly. We need to get on top of this. It's a real issue, and it's time to go ahead and move ahead with SB 891. I'll answer any questions.
Any questions, members? No questions. Thank you, sir. The chair calls Bill Fairbrother, the Texas Republican County Chairman's Association, for the bill. Last call, Bill Fairbrother. Okay, the chair recognizes Glenn Maxey from the Texas Democrat Party to speak on the bill.
Hi, Glenn Maxey with Texas Democratic Party. We're testifying on House Bill 891. We realize, I think everybody's obvious, that there is no requirement from somebody moving from out of state into Texas, registering to vote in Texas. There's no process in place for anybody, unless they are an exceptionally good citizen, to go back and cancel their out-of-state registration. So in doing this kind of thing, we would find the people who are now registered in two states. They would stay on their other state registration typically for 4 years under the suspense kind of situation until they fall off the list. However, one of the reasons that I believe this is necessary to do these kind of cross-checks is when I talked about the escapees, or I think the biggest problem is not people moving to Texas for the first time and staying here, or people moving out of Texas to a new state and staying there. It's the people who are going back and forth. I believe that the snowbirds coming from the north, they're coming to Texas for the winter, are registering to vote here. They may be doing it as the escapees do to get out from under the income tax in New York or Michigan, but they don't cancel their home. They probably may even still have a home. And so then they're cherry picking as they go back and forth of voting in both elections. We may find that there are people who are voting twice across the state line, Oklahoma and Texas. I don't know that that's a big problem, but I believe that that is a problem. The reason we're not saying we're for this is that we would really like to see a second section that gives some definition about how we're going to treat the people that are on both lists, that we spell out that process. The fact that we are going to identify lots of people across state lines, there will be a lot of John Smiths across the country in Texas and any of the other states that we match with that have the same birth date. perhaps the same middle name. There will be a lot of, between us and California, New Mexico, and Arizona, a lot of Maria Gonzalez's with the same birth date. And so how we treat those voters, how we give them notice that you may be registered in 2 states, clearly when these processes are done, the state of Texas would not send anything to the Texas voter who has the most recent application. And hopefully New Mexico would send a letter to the person who left New Mexico. We're lucky that almost all the people that we're talking about here are coming to Texas because we're a growth state. So most of our voters are going to be legal. They're coming here. They're just still on the other state's license. So with that, last session chatted with Representative Click. We will continue to do so to see if we can put a little more definition on exactly how we're going to treat and whether we make sure that these are specifically hard matches. There's 2 major systems in Texas today. There's the Kansas cross-check and the system called ERIC that's done by funded by the Pew Research. We would much prefer, and I think the Secretary of State said this summer, that the better for data matches is the ERIC system. There's a difference that one costs some money and the other doesn't. But if we can do the ERIC system through a grant, which is sometimes available, we would much prefer to know that we're going to do it in the most specific kind of way, so we're not getting bad data matches.
All right, thank you. Questions, members? Thank you. The chair recognizes Jacqueline Callanan with the Bexar County Elections Administration for the bill.
Thank you, sir. Jackie Callanan, Bexar County Elections Administrator 4. I want to thank Representative Click for bringing this back. We were so close last time. And Glenn just explained it. So again, to save time, I don't want to go over that other. But with Eric and the Pew Foundation, they have a grant out there that we could apply for by May 31st for $35,000, which would cover the cost. So I wanted to bring that to your attention.
Thank you. Any questions, members? No questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Willie O'Brien with the Mountain View College for the bill. I don't think so. The chair recognizes Keith Ingram with the Secretary of State's office on the bill. Testify.
Yes, Chair Goldman and the committee. Keith Ingram here, Secretary of State's Elections Division, here on House Bill 891. And if y'all have any questions for us, we would be glad to answer them.
Any members? Representative Reynolds?
Currently, it's against the law to vote in 2 places, right? If they vote in Texas or another state.
Currently, Texas law provides in 64012 that voting twice in an election is illegal voting. It's a second-degree felony. An attempt to do so is a state jail felony.
Okay. I recall, and maybe John Odom can testify to this, I recall an instance in Fort Bend County where there was a candidate for a county commissioner that did that. He voted in Texas and Pennsylvania, but I don't believe he was prosecuted.
Yeah, I don't know anything about where. I remember the case. I don't know what happened.
Thank you.
Do you have a rough estimate how many people are prosecuted a year in the state of Texas for doing so?
For illegal voting under 6412?
Yes.
I have no idea.
Rough estimate? Guess?
No idea. The problem
5,
is that,
10, 100?
We refer the ones that people file an election law complaint with our office,
Right.
we will refer those to the Office of the Attorney General, and so they would have statistics on the ones that we know about. But the local prosecutors have the ability to prosecute these on their own, and we would never hear of it. So
Gotcha.
I just have no idea.
Okay. Any other questions?
I would want to point out that we had an interim committee hearing on this topic, and as a result of that hearing, there were some questions, and I did a report to the previous elections committee on interstate crosscheck and ERIC. If y'all would like, I can get y'all a copy of that report.
I think that'd
so
be great.
that you can use it.
I think that'd be super. Thank you. Any other questions, members? Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And this is when I wish Representative Lautenberg was back. Okay. The chair calls Dana de Beauvoir, but of course, Dana de Beauvoir is registered twice, and so just to make sure there's not 2 Dana de Beauvoirs, I'm going to call her again. And seeing that there is only one, the chair will now call Dana DeBeauvoir with the Legislative Committee on County and District Clerks for the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
That's nice of you. Very quickly, I would like to just echo what my previous two speakers have said about the good things about this cross-check program. It's definitely needed, and we thank Representative Click for bringing this forward again. County clerks supported it last time. As Glenn pointed out, there is no affirmative way right now for an honest citizen to actively say to their previous voter registrar, hey, I'm leaving and I'm moving to another state, unless you really go out of your way to try to volunteer the information. So what we want to try to do is make it easier for us to keep our voter registration rolls up to date. And that's what we really love about the bill, and we very much appreciate Representative Click doing that. We would like to point out that there are some advantages to ERIC that may serve us better in the future. So if there is a way for us to take advantage of some of the things of ERIC, we hope you will consider that. But in the meantime, what we like is the fact that we need to do this cross-check. We're behind schedule. Texas really needs it, and Representative Click is to be commended for bringing this forward again.
Thank you. Any questions, members? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Is there anyone else here who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 891? You have to register. You have to come up and register.
Actually, no, I registered, but I wanted to change my stance, and I didn't register to testify.
Did you register to testify on this bill?
What is your name? My name is Kat Swift.
Okay.
She's registered, just not to testify on this bill.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. There you go. My name is Kat Swift. I'm co-chair of the Green Party of Texas, and I'm here to speak in favor of House Bill 891. 891. Thank you.
Okay. So so I can clear it for the record that you're Kat
Swift.
Sorry, you're Kat Swift, here to testify for the bill, House Bill 891.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Originally, I had said that we were opposed to it for reasons that were from another source that are not relevant. After listening to testimony, we would agree that this is probably a necessity, but I would say that we would appreciate if Glenn Maxey's concerns were addressed, because that seems to be a salient issue. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions, members, for Ms. Swift? Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 891? Is his hand up? No. Okay. Chair recognizes Representative Click to close.
Thank you, members of the committee. I close.
Thank you. If there are no objections, House Bill 891 will be left pending. I'm going to go Springer here. 464. I got it. The chair lays out House Bill 464 for consideration and recognizes Representative Springer to explain the measure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members.
Welcome.
I'm not going to try to grab Boris's line that says I've got a simple bill, but no, it's really a bill that we're laying out to sort of make a fair, even playing field for all those that run for office. In statute right now, any party that receives more than 20% of the vote in a gubernatorial election is required to hold a primary. So currently, both the Democratic and Republican parties have to hold a primary. And we pay a fee to help offset the cost of the elections for the year we're running in. And so the fees don't pay for the entire election process. And so we're putting a bill forward that says everybody who wants to run for election should be on the same fair playing field and have skin in the game. Pay a fee. If you don't want to pay a fee, all parties can get on the ballot through a petition. So we have that in there. And it's really to do that. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, although I think we have a few people here to testify on it. And I might be able to answer some more after that.
Any questions, members?
And I reserve the right to close.
Thank you. Okay, the chair recognizes Mark Miller with the Libertarian Party of Texas, who's against the bill.
Mark Miller again. I'm the legislative coordinator for the Libertarian Party of Texas. The Libertarian Party of Texas opposes House Bill 464. House Bill 464 would require a specific class of state and countywide candidates for public office to pay a filing fee or file a petition in order to appear on the general election ballot. This requirement only applies to 2 of the 4 parties that will be on the Texas general election ballot in 2016. That is, those that elect and select their candidates by convention rather than by primary. Candidates from the Republican and Democratic parties would remain exempt. LP Texas is proud of the fact that our convention-based candidate selection process does not cost Texas taxpayers 1 single cent. As a matter of principle, we believe that the selection of our candidates is a private internal matter that should not be funded with public money. As best as I've been able to determine, primary elections for the 2 major parties cost Texas taxpayers something on the order of $15 million, plus an additional $2 per registered voter at the local level. It is hard to imagine that filing fees provide any significant offset against taxpayer funds required to administer elections. House Bill 464 would thus appear to serve no useful state purpose other than to discriminate against 2 small alternative parties and to discourage their candidates from running for office. How could this possibly be in the public interest? If the Texas legislature feels it is necessary to level the playing field between primary selected and convention selected candidates, our recommendation would be to do away with filing fees and petitions altogether, rather than putting up unnecessary barriers to candidate participation in Texas politics. Thank you. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions, members? Nope. Thank you, Mr. Miller. The chair recognizes Kat Swift with the Green Party of Texas, who's against the bill.
Chair, members of the committee, my name is Kat Swift. I am co-chair of the Green Party of Texas, and we are opposed to House Bill 464, partially for the reasons mentioned by my libertarian counterpart, and for various other reasons. And please pardon my disorganization. I am still recovering from a brain injury, and I'm a little not sequential. First, I want to point out that there are 3 sets of rules governing 3 types of political parties and candidates in Texas. One set of rules applies to primary parties that have reached a certain voter threshold, and I believe it's actually 2% you can have a primary and 11% you have to have a primary, unless that's changed the last session. And those 2 parties are mentioned were the Democrats and Republicans. State and counties conduct and pay for these primaries, and then the petition fees are supposed to offset those costs. However, in 1972, the Supreme Court decided in Bullock versus Carter that the filing system fee in Texas was unconstitutional, and that is why the filing fees no longer pay for the primaries, because they had to be reduced. And it has to do with equal protection under the 14th Amendment. The second and third set of rules apply to non-primary parties, which have to go through convention nomination processes, as the Libertarian Party stated, and the state has no financial cost associated with our convention processes, which is why we do not charge our candidates a fee to be placed on our convention ballot. And so this bill would change that by requiring minor parties to pay a petition for a place on the general election ballot, which is significantly different than a place on the primary ballot. and there's no demonstration of any fiscal impact that that the non-primary parties have on the state of Texas, and that was cited as a case law reason that it has to be found reasonably necessary to the accomplishment of legitimate state objectives in order to pass constitutional muster. There's lots of case law about why this is discriminatory. And also about the level playing field for candidates. This would actually make it more difficult for a party that does not have ballot access. So say, for example, you have a new political party that wants to get on the ballot. They're going to have to do these things. One, they're going to have to set up state organization, petition to get on the ballot, which is 45,000 signatures in 75 days of people who didn't vote in a primary and are registered to vote. And once they do that, then they have ballot access. But then on top of that, what this bill would add to that is once they did all of that petitioning, then they would have to turn around and petition or pay a filing fee to be on the general election ballot. So that is an added burden. This is not leveling the playing field at all. And we agree with the Republicans that if you want to eliminate filing fees for candidates for the primary parties, which we would concur with, for a different reason, we believe that states should fund our elections, that they should not be privately funded. And then the filing fees should just be eliminated for everybody. And there are lots of laws that y'all could change that would level the playing field for candidates, but this absolutely does not, and it actually makes it more difficult for people who are not on the ballot to begin with. And it also doesn't include independent candidates. So independent candidates have a whole nother set of rules that they have to go by. And there's no filing fee as far as I'm aware, and there's a lower petition. And so this wouldn't impact them, but along Representative Springer's lines of thinking that to level the playing field, he would have to apply this to independent candidates as well. Just in closing, I would say that the primary fee system in the state has already been struck down once as being unnecessary, unreasonable, and violating equal protection, and that we should take care not to face such problems such as this again. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, members? Okay, thank you very much for your testimony. Willie O'Brien with the Mountain View College. Has he appeared yet? It doesn't seem so. All right, he's against the bill. The chair calls Jennifer Hall on behalf of herself, who's on the bill. Oh, that's not Ms. Hall. The chair recognizes Adam Greeley, who's for himself against the bill.
Hello.
Hi, Mr. Greeley.
I've always
Mr. Greeley, please state your name and whether you're for or against the bill or on the bill. And exactly
my name is Adam Greeley. I'm a representation of the Green Party of Texas. I'm against this bill because I believe it would...
State the bill number, House Bill 464.
I'm against House Bill 464.
Thank you very much.
And I think that it would disenfranchise and make things more difficult for third parties and minor parties, which we don't have enough support and fair voting laws for third parties. We're making it more difficult nationally, and I think this would just add to lack of, giving more leeway to the two-party system instead of having more choices, which is important, I think, for a fair democracy. Germany has 10 parties fairly represented, and I think we disenfranchise people to vote when we put more bills like this that disenfranchise third parties. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your testimony. Any questions, members? No questions. The chair recognizes Ashley Fisher with the Secretary of State's office on the bill.
Hi, Ashley Fisher here from the Secretary of State's office, speaking on House Bill 464. If anybody has any questions?
questions.
Okay. No questions. Okay. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify for, against, or on House Bill 464? None? Then I recognize Representative Springer to close.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Just to clear up a few things that were commented in there. As stated, the Republicans and the Democrats cannot hold a convention like the other two parties that testified here today. That is not an option that we have. I don't see it that it does anything to disenfranchise. A number of us mentioned 45,000. It's a much, much lower number if you want to get a petition signed to even run for state representative, and the filing fee of $750. For anybody who's going to be a serious candidate, the party does not pay our filing fees. We personally decide when we want to run, we pay that filing fee. So it is an individual's action that pays that, not the party itself. And with that, members, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. You close.
All right.
All right.
Thank you, members.
House Bill, excuse me, House Bill 464 will be left pending at this time. Okay. The chair lays out House Bill 420 for consideration and recognizes Representative Wu to explain your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have the privilege of laying out the last bill of the night, right? Committee members,
You say the best for last.
I'll pretend that's true. Committee members, this is a bill that this is the exact same bill that we filed actually last session. This is asking for data that the Secretary of State's office is required by federal law to file to the federal government on data from the Elections Assistance Commission. That's required by the Election Assistance Commission. We're just asking for a copy of the data that they're filing. The bill asks for data to be presented on their website in a searchable format by county. That's it. There's no fiscal note because it's data that they already generate for the federal government. We just want a copy of it. Last session, we had pulled our bill because the Secretary of State's office had said that they would work with us to get that data out to us. 2 years later, here we are again, and we're asking the Secretary of State's office to release that information that they already provide to the federal government so they can share it with the rest of us. This is a nonpartisan issue. It doesn't help Democrats or help Republicans or help Independents or Green Party. It's just data for people who care about elections. And with that, I'll have you take any questions. If not, I'll reserve the right to close.
Any questions, member Representative Israel?
Hi, Representative Wu. Was this? Did you say this was introduced last session?
Yes, it was.
What was the outcome?
We pulled the bill back, decided not to move forward with the bill because the Secretary of State's office had said that they would work with us to basically provide this without having being told to do so.
And what was your interaction with the Secretary of State's office?
I'll be honest, it was really the Secretary of State's office working with my staff. I think we couldn't come to an agreement over what data would be presented, and I think the Secretary of State's here to explain exactly what the issue was. Again, the bill calls for data derived from the information regarding voter registration reported by the Elections Assistance Commission to Congress, and the data is to be posted on their website that's searchable for each county that's searchable. So this is data that already is generated. We just want to put it on the website.
Any other questions? Oh, Representative Schofield.
Hi, Mr. Wu, what is it that you're hoping to get? What is the data that you want to have on here? What are you looking for?
Essentially looking for if there are any problems with people registering to vote. I think looking for change in the number of voters registering. I can't give you any more specific than that. I think this is something that the staffs among our office and the Secretary of State's office has been trying to work out for the last couple of years.
Now, does this involve I'm not quite sure exactly what we're doing here. Does this involve linking to the Election Assistance Commission's website?
No, the data is sent to the feds, and then nothing is ever done with it again. So we're asking that the data that is sent to the federal government just be posted on the Secretary of State's website.
And how much cost is there? I know we always get net zero fiscal notes when they're okay with it, but what does it really cost to have them have to put all this in searchable format by county?
I would say close to zero. I mean, you're essentially having it on their server that virtually no one will access other than election nerds.
But putting it on, I mean, I worked in state government long to know somebody's got to
Yeah.
spend their time doing this, and we pay those people.
It's a single hyperlink to a server. Like, if somebody wants to create I mean, you can use Microsoft Word if you want, and just put in the link and copy and paste it for each file. For 254 files.
What is the benefit to having all this on the website? I mean, other than you and me, who's going to look at it?
Well, people who...
And lawyers who want
Well,
to sue the state.
Well, I would say anyone who's interested in whether or not people are being registered to vote. I mean, I know this is a sort of like election, sort of an arcane science, but I mean, like as you are very well aware, I mean, elections are very important to the state, and important to both parties or even third parties. Trends and patterns of how people are registering to vote, whether people are coming in and out of a county, if there's any issues with registering in a county, those are all very important issues. You know, it may not be important to that many people, but I think it is a very important issue for the people who care about this.
And your bill says in a searchable format. Searchable by what?
I would assume searchable format would mean like an Excel file where you can
Search for individual voters.
I don't think it lists the data that way, and Secretary of State can correct me on that. I don't believe that the data is listed that way. I think it's just, within the counties you have individual precincts, and you talk about registered voters in and out of those precincts within the county. And I could be wrong. The Secretary of State can correct me on that.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions, members? Okay, you reserve the right to close.
I reserve the right to close.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Chair calls Glenn Maxey with the Texas Democrat Party for House Bill 420.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Glenn Maxey with the Texas Democratic Party, testifying in favor of House Bill 420. I don't want to belabor the point. This is readily available data that's already generated. It's just making it more available to the general public and for data nerds like me. So we support it, that people who would like to study this and see what the patterns are, see if there are problems. It's just, if we have the information, the state owns it, we should make it readily available to the people of Texas.
Representative Israel.
Mr. Maxey, what kind of data are we looking at? Could you give us maybe some examples of what a nerd might troll through this site and do?
Well, it'd be interesting to see, if I were looking at 254 counties, what the rate of voter registration growth is across the state of Texas. And if you see that suburban counties are lagging behind rural counties and urban counties, that tells us there's something amiss there that we might need to go and redouble our efforts. So it's basically looking at, I'm just making this up as I go here, but looking for those kind of patterns and seeing where growth in registration is or where it's flattened off. That could be because it's a county where the population is exiting or dying off in most of rural Texas as population contracts, but we will be able to see that data and see where the efforts need to be placed to encourage more people to be registered.
Yeah.
And we could look precinct by precinct in a district like yours.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thank
you. All right. Chair calls Bill Fairbrother with the Texas Republican County Chairmen's Association on the bill. Oh, he left. Okay. He is neutral on the bill and does not wish to testify. And then we have Keith Ingram with the Secretary of State's office on the bill in case anyone has any questions.
I have a question.
Okay. Could you come down, Keith?
Hello, Chair Laubenberg and Committee. Keith Ingram, Secretary of State's Office Elections Division. Here to answer any questions on House Bill 420.
Okay. Representative Israel.
Hey, Keith, I was just curious when I'm looking for maybe some communications information too, like when last session you thought Representative Wu had a thought or an idea, and you had a thought and idea, and it became apparent that the bill wasn't needed. What happened to those thoughts and those ideas?
Well, I'm not exactly sure. If you go back and look at the House Committee hearing on the bill last session, there was a lot of testimony similar to what we've heard today about wanting to track trends in voter registration by county. And so we actually produce a report every month in the Secretary of State's office called Cancellation Trends, and it goes through the voter registration by county, number of new voters, number that are canceled, and the reason that they're canceled. And so we offered to post that monthly, and we have been posting it monthly since March of 2013. So apparently that's not what is wanted. We don't know what information other than that is desired to be posted. We have the Election Assistance Commission survey, which is every 2 years. The federal government, since the Help America Vote Act has passed, has required the states to collect by county information regarding a whole range of things, including voter registration. And that's every 2 years, and that information is then given to the Election Assistance Commission on the Election Assistance Commission's website. It's there. It's available to anybody that wants to look at it. But it's not really the trend by county. It's a 2-year snapshot. So it's not really what, when you hear them describe what they would like to see, it's not really, that's not going to help them. Plus, it's already posted for the whole world to watch. So, and the EAC has helpful graphs and charts with the data. Pew uses it for their election report, where they grade the states on how states are doing with their elections. So what we did is we got a letter from Representative Wu that said, you know, what happened? Why aren't y'all posting the stuff? And so we showed Greg, his staffer, what we were posting. And we produce a lot of reports every month about voter registration. And we sent him every single one of those reports and said, if this isn't sufficient, which other ones of these reports would you like for us to post? We're glad to post them every month. Just tell us which ones. And we never heard anything else.
So you've been working with them?
Trying.
Okay. I think Representative Schofield and then Representative Reynolds.
What is involved in compiling the data for you, for your office?
Well, if we're talking about the EAC survey, that is an onerous thing. The EAC survey is a comprehensive look at elections. It is, and so in Texas we've got in 151 counties, we've got a county clerk and a tax assessor collector to deal with. So you have to get the voter registration information from the tax assessor collector. You got to get the election information from the county clerk. And then in the EA counties, 103 of those, we get all the information from the EA. But it's an extra duty for these county election officials, and they don't like to mess with it. It is very complicated information, and it's not readily available in Teams, so they have to actually go dig the information out. So the collection for the EAC is a big job. We start as soon as the election gets over with in November of an even-numbered year, and we're only just now finishing.
And so this is not something where you could just link to the EAC's federal website?
Sure we can. Once we've gathered all the information, we give it to the EAC, it's posted on the web, and yes, it's perfectly usable information that anybody can access, and we'd be glad to post a link to it.
And can you in Texas? My understanding is the EAC's website's only in English, and don't we get in trouble when we post the things that aren't also in Spanish and Vietnamese?
I don't know if this would be something that would be required under the Voting Rights Act to be in Spanish. That's a good thought.
And let me ask you a final question. I wish I was more of an analytics nerd because I'm a baseball fan, and it would, I'm sure, greatly enhance my enjoyment. And also, I'm an elections guy. But the data that I hear people wanting a lot of the time is sort of voter age population and the number of people registered from that. Does this information that we have here tell you how many of the voter age population aren't eligible to vote because they're not citizens?
No. No, no information like that.
Well,
That's
thank you.
something from the Census Bureau. We don't collect that.
Okay, Representative Reynolds.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do you know whether or not any other states are doing what Representative Vu's bill requires?
I find it very difficult to answer that question because I'm not exactly sure what Representative Wu's bill requires. If I was sure of that, we'd already be doing it. So I don't know is the answer to your question. I do know that all 50 states collect the EAC data every other year, and that all 50 states have their EAC data posted on the EAC's website.
From the Secretary of State's website?
It's on the Election Assistance Commission's website.
Okay.
Okay, members, are there any other questions? All right, thank you. Okay, Chair calls Willie O'Brien from Mountain View College Student Government. Willie, I hope you show up one of these days. Registering against House Bill 420 and did register to testify, but since he's not here, we will declare him not testifying. Okay. So, having said that, is there anyone who wishes to come up to the microphone to testify for, against, or on House Bill 420? And seeing none, then Chair recognizes Representative Wu to close.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to ask a little bit. We'll pull this bill back, and we'll talk to the Secretary of State's office, figure this stuff out.
I think there's still a lot of vagueness that if you work with them,
we'll get it squared away.
they sound like they're willing to help you out. So
Appreciate
that.
Thank you, and I close.
Okay, House Bill 420 will be left pending at this time. Okay, that is it on all the bills that were posted, and okay. All right. So, if there is no further business before us, the House Committee on Elections is now adjourned, subject to the call of the chair.